Chapter 1384. The black hole enveloped the souls of Dezang of Gugurio and Li Xiaotian. Seeing himself approaching the black hole step by step, Dezang of Gugurio was on the verge of despair. Li Xiaotian laughed and said, "Dezang of Gugurio, you are high and mighty, insufferably arrogant, but in the end, you end up like this. It is worth it even if my soul is scattered." "No." Dezang of Gugurio roared at the top of his lungs, activating the Ksitigarbha Sutra. However, although the Ksitigarbha Sutra was strong, the sky-swallowing technique had a natural restraining effect on souls. He already had no way out and was about to perish together with Li Xiaotian. After a while, the black light on Dezang of Gugurio's body swayed, like a candle flame being blown by the wind, swaying unsteadily. Suddenly, whoosh! A golden light rushed into the sky, like a spark of fire, instantly covering his entire body, covering the black light. "Heh!" Tang Zheng furrowed his brows. "Tang Zheng, quickly stop, it's me." Dezang of Gugurio's voice sounded, less ruthless and more gentle. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, Dezang of Gugurio's kind side. However, he did not immediately come to a conclusion. The dark side was incomparably cunning. He could not rule out the possibility that he was deliberately mystifying. Li Xiaotian clearly also thought of this point, resolutely said, "Don't hesitate, this is definitely his scheme." Li Xiaotian's mind was outstanding. She naturally thought of the problem that Tang Zheng thought of. She did not want to waste time to distinguish between the truth and the lies. For this kind of thing, it was better to kill by mistake than to let the tiger return to the mountain. Of course, this meant that Li Xiaotian had to die together, but her heart did not waver in the slightest. Her determination to sacrifice did not change. Tang Zheng looked at Li Xiaotian with a burning gaze. He could read her thoughts from her eyes, and his heart felt as if it had been ruthlessly stabbed by a knife. As he spoke, a beam of black light soared into the sky and clashed with the golden light. They were in a stalemate. "Why did you escape again?" Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva roared hysterically. Clearly, the dark side's momentum was surging again. The golden light did not back down, and the endless cassock slowly turned from black to gold. "You want to completely suppress me, but the heavens won't let you do as you wish. The heaven-devouring technique's soul-devouring power is too great, causing the soul to become unstable. How can you have the remaining strength to suppress me?" When Tang Zheng heard this, his heart skipped a beat. Could it be true? However, Li Xiaotian was not prepared to take the risk. He anxiously urged, "Tang Zheng, don't be soft-hearted. Sacrificing me can eliminate all dangerous factors. This is a good deal." Tang Zheng was incomparably conflicted. He had originally made up his mind, but when he saw a glimmer of hope, Li Xiaotian did not have to die, his determination was shaken again. In the end, he could not bear to see Li Xiaotian die. "Don't, Li Xiaotian, don't mislead Tang Zheng. As long as you find a way to suppress my dark side, everything can be restored to its original state." Dezang of Gugurio's voice sounded again. This was clearly the good side. Tang Zheng looked at Dezang of Gugurio with a burning gaze. He could not tell the truth because the other party was originally one. Dezang of Gugurio read Tang Zheng's eyes and saw him fly to the edge of the black hole. His soul was about to be sucked into the black hole. Dezang of Gugurio faintly sighed and said, "Tang Zheng, don't be conflicted. If I don't enter hell, who will? If you can stop my dark side, what is there to fear by sacrificing me?" Dezang of Gugurio put his palms together. His appearance was solemn and there was not the slightest trace of fear. Tang Zheng looked at him absent-mindedly. This appearance was too familiar. It was the good side of Dezang of Gugurio. Although he did not agree with many of Dezang of Gugurio's methods, his intentions were good. His heart was moved and he made a decision. Dezang of Gugurio's solemn appearance did not last for long. His expression suddenly changed and his vicious aura surged. He hysterically roared, "What are you doing? You are seeking your own death, do you understand? Hurry up and do it." Li Xiaotian urged. Song Jianguang rolled his eyes and almost fainted. He had made a mistake in his bet. What awaited him next would definitely not be good. Of the 36 stratagems, the best is to leave. Song Jianguang's eyes turned and he fled without looking at the final result. At this critical moment, of course, no one cared about whether Song Jianguang stayed or left. That little thought was not worth mentioning in front of the big picture. Dezang of Gugurio, I'll believe you this time. Tang Zheng suddenly roared. The black hole disappeared and his whole body shone with golden light. He put his hands together and started chanting the Kittigaba Sutra. Golden Sanskrit words flew out of his mouth and merged into the endless Kasaya. Dezang of Gugurio and Li Xiaotian simultaneously broke free from the shackles and regained their freedom. Li Xiaotian's eyes revealed a look of disappointment. At the last moment, his heart softened. Tang Zheng was indeed soft-hearted. He would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. The kindness in his heart won over everything. Moreover, he could not bear to see Li Xiaotian's soul dissipate in front of him. If they were sucked into the heaven realm, Tang Zheng could not be sure of the consequences. One had to know that Tang Zheng had sucked living people into the black hole before, but now there were no such people in the heaven realm. This meant that after entering the heaven realm, these people would die or even have their souls dissipated. Although he was in charge of the heaven realm, the moment they entered the black hole, the terrifying tearing power was enough to make their souls dissipate. He did not dare to take this risk. If Li Xiaotian's soul dissipated, then he would have to kill her with his own hands. He swore to resurrect her, but in the end, it was completely ruined by his own hands. He could not accept this result. Moreover, Dezang of Gugurio's words also moved him. If I don't go to hell, who will? At that moment, he believed that this was not a conspiracy of Dezang of Gugurio. It was indeed the rise of Dezang of Gugurio's good side. He wanted to help Dezang of Gugurio's good side. He guessed that the Ksitagaba Sutra must be the key to all of this, so he recited the Ksitagaba Sutra in an attempt to control the dark side of Dezang of Gugurio. After the golden Sanskrit words merged into the endless Kasak, Dezang of Gugurio's golden light surged, and the black light retreated. The endless Kasak also returned to its golden color. Dezang of Gugurio looked solemn, completely suppressing his ruthlessness. A majestic voice sounded, "The situation is settled. Don't you think you can do it again?" Whoosh! A golden light rushed to the sky from the top of his head, turning into a golden swastika in mid-air, and a golden lotus bloomed under his feet. He sat cross-legged, put his hands together, and made a merciful gesture, reciting the Ksitagaba Sutra. Golden Sanskrit characters danced around his body like golden butterflies dancing in the air, dazzling everyone's eyes. The black gas made a dying struggle. However, after the golden Sanskrit words from Tang Zheng's mouth continuously merged into Dezang of Gugurio's body, everything gradually calmed down. Previously, the good side of Dezang of Gugurio and the dark side fought. Although there were countless believers to help, all of their help added together was not as strong as Tang Zheng's strength. This was because the Ksitagaba Sutra was the real Ksitagaba Sutra. After comprehending the essence of the Ksitagaba Sutra, one's skill was profound, and the support provided was naturally extraordinary. The cooperation of two people who had a deep understanding of the Ksitagaba Sutra could not be underestimated. After the black gas struggled for a while, it was completely defeated. It retracted little by little, and finally disappeared completely. Amitabha, Buddha is merciful. Dezang of Gugurio suddenly chanted the name of Buddha, and the golden light gradually dissipated. Tang Zheng also stopped chanting the Ksitagaba Sutra, and looked at Dezang of Gugurio with shining eyes. Four eyes met, Dezang of Gugurio suddenly smiled, stood up from the lotus, and bowed deeply to Tang Zheng, saying, "Tang Zheng, thank you for your merciful heart." Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice, "Dezang of Gugurio, the dark side lost?" "Temporarily lost." "Temporarily?" Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. Wasn't this a ticking time bomb? It could rise from the ashes at any time. Yes, the dark side is my personality, and even a part of my soul. I can't destroy it, so I can only suppress it. Dezang of Gugurio said calmly, already aware of this reality. Then will it appear again? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Dezang of Gugurio was silent for a while, and then said, "It's possible. It's much stronger than when I suppressed it before. I also don't know when it will rise again and take the initiative of this body." This was Dezang of Gugurio's eternal pain. His life's belief was to deliver all living beings from torment, but in the end, even he was not truly enlightened. It had to be said that this was a kind of regret, and even a kind of irony. He didn't think about this before, but now he felt incomparably bitter, and his previous persistence seemed somewhat laughable. Tang Zheng's eyes rose to his throat, and he asked unwillingly, "Is there no way to get it done once and for all?" Dezang of Gugurio shook his head and said bitterly, "If there was, I would have found it long ago. Back then, I suppressed him in the sea of bitterness, thinking that it was foolproof. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. The sea of bitterness disappeared, and he finally saw the light of day again. Perhaps, this is the will of the heavens, a test from the heavens for me." Hearing him mention the sea of bitterness, Tang Zheng understood that his sudden action had caused such a chain reaction. He said embarrassedly, "Dezang of Gugurio, this is all my fault. If I didn't destroy the sea of bitterness." Dezang of Gugurio waved his hand and interrupted him, "No, this is not your fault. I trapped you in the sea of bitterness, this is the cause. You destroyed the sea of bitterness, this is the effect. If there is no cause, there is no effect. So, this is all my fault." Dezang of Gugurio took the initiative to take the responsibility on his shoulders, which made Tang Zheng slightly moved. This was the responsibility of both sides. Since things had happened, it was not his style to retreat. He believed that there was always a way out, just like himself in the sea of bitterness. He originally thought that there was no way out, but he never thought that there would be a glimmer of hope. This matter was the same. Although Dezang of Gugurio vowed that there was no way to suppress the dark side, he did not give up. He did not give up and asked, "Dezang of Gugurio, there is always a way out. Think about it, there will always be a way. There is always a way out." It seemed that Tang Zheng's emotions had infected him. He looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. The golden light in his eyes was unfathomable. Tang Zheng did not disturb him. Instead, his gaze turned and fell on Li Xiaotian. "Are you okay?" Li Xiaotian smiled. Although Tang Zheng's final compromise disappointed her, she also understood that he could not bear to see her soul disappear. She flew into Tang Zheng's arms and said softly, "I'm fine." She raised her head slightly and looked at him affectionately. "Thank you. I got it." Chapter 1385. Dezang of Gugurio's shout shocked Tang Zheng. He turned his head, surprised and happy. "There's a way." Li Xiaotian also looked at him with shining eyes. Dezang of Gugurio nodded. "Yes, there is another way. But this method has a key condition that can't be achieved at all, so I didn't think of it at first." Dezang of Gugurio showed a regretful expression. Tang Zheng's head sank. Just when there was a glimmer of hope, he was immediately thrown into the abyss, rising and falling like a roller coaster. "What's the way? Tell us and let's brainstorm, maybe we can solve it." Tang Zheng could not hide his depressed mood. Li Xiaotian could not help but hold Tang Zheng's hand tightly, eager to know the answer. "Okay." Dezang of Gugurio said, "There is another thing in the world of spirits and souls that can suppress my dark side. However, this thing has long been lost, and I don't know where it is. That's why I said there's no way to achieve it." Tang Zheng's interest was aroused. What else in the world of spirits and souls could suppress Dezang of Gugurio's dark side? He had personally seen the magic of the sea of bitterness. Was there anything similar in the world of spirits and souls other than the sea of bitterness? "What is it?" Tang Zheng asked. 9 nether iron. Dezang of Gugurio could not hide his disappointment. "What?" Tang Zheng was shocked, thinking that he had heard wrongly. "Are you talking about the 9 nether iron?" Dezang of Gugurio looked at him in surprise, not knowing why he had such a big reaction, and asked, "Is there a problem? You said that the 9 nether iron can suppress your dark side." Tang Zheng asked in disbelief. Dezang of Gugurio nodded. "Yes, don't you believe me?" "No." Tang Zheng's mouth curved into a smile, and he wanted to cheer. "God is really helping me." The 5-clawed golden dragon was trapped under the imperial city, and its 5 dragon claws were locked by the 9 nether iron. Even the 5-clawed golden dragon could not break free from the 9 nether iron. From this, it could be seen that the 9 nether iron was extraordinary. The The five-clawed golden dragon had once said that the 9U mysterious iron was one of the best materials for forging weapons and refining magic treasure. Later on, Tang Zheng also suddenly had an idea to try and forge the 9U mysterious iron into a magic treasure. It was easy said, it was really too difficult to do. Of Gugurio of Gugurio. Was Gugurio of Gugurio. Gugurio of Gugurio of Gugurio of Gugurio had almost would have forgotten about its existence had Gugurio had of Gogogu of Gogogogu of Gogoyo Gogogurian, he of Gogogogurio of would, he. It was almost forgotten about it. Dizang of Gugurio was smart. When he saw Tang Jing's reaction, his heart moved, and he asked, "How do you know about the 9 nether iron?" The 9 nether iron was an item of the ghost realm. Even in the ghost realm, very few people knew about its existence. Tang Zheng was a living person. How could he know about the 9 nether iron? Moreover, he seemed to be very familiar with it. Dizang of Gugurio had a huge question mark in his heart. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile, "If you have other conditions, maybe there really is no way, but you mentioned the 9 nether iron. This is really the will of God. I can't find other things, but if you want the 9 nether iron, you can have it." What? Dizang of Gugurio was really moved. He was still guessing the meaning of Tang Zheng's words, but this sentence directly revealed the whole story. He actually had the 9 nether iron. How was this possible? This was the first thought that popped up in Dizang of Gugurio's mind. In order to suppress his dark side, he almost searched the entire ghost realm, but he didn't see the shadow of the 9 nether iron. How could it run to Tang Zheng? "How do you have the 9 nether iron?" Dizang of Gugurio blurted out. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and sighed in his heart. This was really the will of God. He almost regarded the 9 nether iron as a useless thing, but he didn't expect it to become a key thing now. "I also obtained it by chance in the imperial city," Tang Zheng explained in a few words. The more Dizang of Gugurio listened, the rounder his eyes became. Finally, he had to sigh. It turns out that the 9 nether iron has been in the human world for a long time. No wonder I couldn't find it in the ghost realm. Dizang of Gugurio looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. Tang Zheng was a little uncomfortable under his gaze and said, "Why are you looking at me like this?" "This is the will of God." Dizang of Gugurio said in a deep voice, "I never thought that you would bring me the 9 nether iron." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "I also never thought that the 9 nether iron would have such a big role. I only know that it is a good material for forging weapons and refining magic weapons." Dizang of Gugurio nodded, "You are right. The 9 nether iron is a good material for refining magic weapons. You must have tried to forge it." Dizang of Gugurio paused for a moment. Without waiting for Tang Zheng to answer, he continued, "You don't have to answer. I know the answer. You must have failed." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly, "I am not strong enough. I did fail. There is no way to refine the 9 nether iron, let alone refine it into magic weapons. Of course you won't succeed." Ksitigaba Bodhisattva was not surprised at all. "You people in the human world like to use true fire to refine magic weapons. I don't know what grade your true fire has reached, but even if it has reached the highest grade of 6th grade true fire, you can forget about refining the mysterious 9 serenities iron." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Oh, why do you say that?" "The 9 nether iron is an item of the ghost realm. The flames of the outside world cannot refine it. Only the ghost fire of the ghost realm can." Ghost fire? Tang Zheng's head moved, and a picture flashed in his mind. A blue flame floated in the air like a flower. He had encountered ghost fire before, but in his opinion, it was too weak. It was not as strong as his true fire. Is ghost fire so powerful? Tang Zheng asked in disbelief. Dizang of Gugurio nodded and said, "I know what you are thinking. Ghost fire is not strong. Almost all the cultivators of the ghost realm can use ghost fire. But have you ever heard of the principle that there is always one thing to overcome another?" Tang Zheng thought about it and nodded gently. Although the will-o'-the-wisp is not strong, it has a restraining effect on the mysterious 9 serenities iron. It can refine the mysterious 9 serenities iron into a magic treasure. Ksitigaba Bodhisattva said solemnly. Li Xiaotian was slightly absent-minded. With a thought, a ball of flame appeared in his palm. It flickered with a faint blue light. This ball of flame did not feel hot, but it gave people a very cold feeling. It did not seem to be a flame, but a block of ice. Li Xiaotian comprehended the Ksitagarbha Sutra and was a member of the ghost realm. But she was in the ghost realm for such a short time and could easily use ghost fire. It was obvious that ghost fire was not a rare thing in the ghost realm. Tang Zheng stared at the ghost fire. He wanted to take out the 9 nether iron and test it. He restrained this impulse and looked at Dezang of Gugurio and said, "Now that we have found the 9 nether iron, how can we use it to suppress your dark side? In addition, will the dark side break free from its shackles like in the Sea of Bitterness and bring disaster to the world again?" This question was very direct and did not care about Dezang of Gugurio. Dezang of Gugurio did not care because Tang Zheng's question was straight to the point. Chapter 1386. Tang Zheng originally thought that there was no big problem, but he never heard that it was impossible, which was tantamount to bad news. He stared blankly at Dezang of Gugurio and asked, "Why can't you do it?" Dezang of Gugurio said bitterly, "The strength of the dark side will increase day by day, the mysterious underworld iron can suppress it, but there is no way to suppress it forever. Once the strength of the dark side reaches a certain level, it will naturally regain its freedom." Tang Zheng couldn't help but roll his eyes. This was really too much nonsense. This was not a foolproof method at all. However, Dezang of Gugurio's expression told him that there was indeed no foolproof method. He sighed in disappointment. It seemed that he could only temporarily suppress the dark side. It was better than nothing. "When do we start?" Tang Zheng asked. "Naturally, the sooner the better." Dezang of Gugurio didn't want to delay any longer and have more problems. Suppressing the dark side in the body was also a very torturous thing. "Can we do it now?" Dezang of Gugurio's eyes lit up. "It couldn't be better. The two of you please follow me." Dezang of Gugurio led the way. The three of them together came to a secret basement in the depths of the palace. The miscellaneous people had already been purged. The huge basement only had Tang Zheng, Dezang of Gugurio, and Li Xiaotian. "This way, we won't be disturbed. Suppressing my dark side is not an easy task. We can't be disturbed," Dezang of Gugurio said in a low voice. Tang Zheng nodded slightly, knowing that it was time to take out the mysterious underworld iron. His mind moved. Whoosh! A light flashed, spreading to every corner of the space. Several big guys appeared in front of Dezang of Gugurio. "It really is the mysterious underworld iron." Dezang of Gugurio's eyes lit up, staring at these big guys. The mysterious 9 underworld iron was forged into chains to bind the claws of the 5-clawed golden dragon. From this, it could be seen that these 5 chains were no ordinary people. How could they possibly bind the gigantic 5-clawed golden dragon? Dezang of Gugurio stared at the 9 Serenity's mysterious iron with burning eyes. He could not help but touch it. This was something that he had been dreaming of, and he did not expect it to appear in front of him like this. "Hey, someone has refined the mysterious 9 Serenity's iron." Dezang of Gugurio frowned. Tang Zheng did not know the original form of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Back then, it was Shenyin who used the mysterious 9 underworld iron to imprison the Dragon Clan. As for how Shenyin obtained the mysterious 9 underworld iron and refined it into chains, he did not know. Dezang of Gugurio didn't want to delve into it. He opened his palm, and a ball of will-o'-the-wisp rose into the air and hovered in the center of his palm. He said, "If you want to use the mysterious 9 underworld iron to suppress my dark side, you must first refine the mysterious 9 underworld iron and then suppress it during this process. Then we shall wait and see." Tang Zheng made an inviting gesture and pulled Li Xiaotian back a few steps. They watched quietly. Dezang of Gugurio stared straight at the mysterious 9 underworld iron. His eyes shone with a strange light. He did not say a word, and his expression became serious. Whoosh! A flame flew out from the will-o'-the-wisp. It was like a small fire snake, and it slithered along the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Wherever the fire snake passed, the mysterious 9 underworld iron would also burn. However, this flame did not have any temperature. It did not give people a feeling of burning heat. Instead, It was like a cold wind blowing past, causing people to tremble. Li Xiaotian stared at Dezang of Gugurio without blinking. She wanted to see how he controlled the will-o'-the-wisp. Although she could activate the will-o'-the-wisp, her cultivation was too shallow after all. She was far from Dezang of Gugurio. Dezang of Gugurio was fully focused. In an instant, the will-o'-the-wisp had completely enveloped the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron turned blue and was melting little by little. Tang Zheng was very different. The ghost world and the human world were two different worlds. There were many places that were completely different, such as this scene. Under the effect of the will-o'-the-wisp, the mysterious 9 underworld iron did not turn red. Instead, it turned blue. Finally, it turned into a flowing liquid, like a stream flowing on the ground. Finally, it gathered together. The indestructible mysterious 9 underworld iron in Tang Zheng's hands was defeated so quickly. It was beyond Tang Zheng's expectations. Everything had its vanquisher. It was indeed so. His heart moved. He couldn't help but think that if he used the true fire and the will-o'-the-wisp at the same time when refining the magic weapon, would there be a miraculous effect? No. He immediately shook his head and rejected this seemingly tempting idea. Because this was simply impossible to achieve. Although the true fire and the will-o'-the-wisp both had the word fire, they were two completely different types of energy. How could it be possible to combine them and refine the magic weapon together? This was equivalent to a fantasy story. Abandoning these messy thoughts, he concentrated on looking at Dezang of Gugurio. Along with the change of his hand gesture, the mysterious 9 underworld iron changed shape in his palm. Suddenly, Dezang of Gugurio's eyes revealed a touch of color. Whoosh! Golden light shone brightly. Dezang of Gugurio turned into a big golden man. The endless Kasaya moved without wind and floated up like a cape. It kept fluttering behind him, making flapping sounds. The color in his eyes became more and more intense. It spread to the corners of his eyes, as if it wanted to rush out of his eyes and spread to other places. Amitabha. Dezang of Gugurio chanted the name of Buddha. He put his palms together and stared at the mysterious 9 underworld iron that was still spinning in front of him. He said, "Evil creature, do you still want to make meaningless resistance? Everything is over." After saying that, Dezang of Gugurio stretched out a finger and pointed at the corner of his eye. The light was like a flood that broke through a dam. It poured out in torrents and merged into Dezang of Gugurio's fingertip. Hua! Golden light suddenly appeared. A golden swastika firmly wrapped the light. The light kept struggling, but there was no way to break through the shackles of the swastika. Dezang of Gugurio didn't dare to lower his guard. His finger quickly moved to the front of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron emitted a faint blue light. As soon as the light touched the light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron, it immediately made a sharp sound and kept retreating. It seemed to be very afraid. However, there was a golden swastika behind it. There was no way to retreat. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian watched as the light was merged with the faint blue light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. At first, the light was unwilling and struggled to break through. However, in the end, the light calmed down and was completely covered by the faint blue light of the mysterious 9 underworld iron. It couldn't jump up anymore and even disappeared. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian knew that the light didn't disappear. It was just suppressed by the mysterious 9 underworld iron. Once the opponent's strength was strong enough, the mysterious 9 underworld iron might not be able to suppress it. At that time, it would definitely be another scene that would cause a complete upheaval in the world of spirits and souls. Phew, Dezang of Gugurio let out a long sigh. Different situations call for different measures. It was too early to think about this now. For now, they had one. At least the dark side was completely suppressed by the mysterious 9 underworld iron. The mysterious 9 underworld iron turned into a faint blue molten iron. Under the control of Dezang of Gugurio's palm, it kept changing shape. In the end, the mysterious 9 underworld iron turned into a big ball and finally stopped. It fell to the ground with a bang and smashed a big hole in the bluestone floor. Dezang of Gugurio was relieved, but he looked at the mysterious 9 underworld iron with a complicated expression. Whoosh! A light flashed through the big ball and instantly attracted the attention of several people. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were shocked. Li Xiaotian couldn't wait to ask, "Is that your dark side?" Dezang of Gugurio nodded without hesitation. "Yes." As he spoke, the ghost fire that wrapped the mysterious 9 underworld iron disappeared little by little. The originally faint blue liquid mysterious 9 underworld iron slowly solidified and finally turned into a big ball as black as ink. No matter how bright that light was, it almost merged with the mysterious 9 underworld iron and couldn't be distinguished. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at the big ball with shining eyes. This was made of mysterious 9 underworld iron, and it was extraordinary. In addition, the original 5 chains seemed to be a lot of mysterious 9 underworld iron. However, in the hands of Dezang of Gugurio, the impurities were completely refined by the ghost fire and turned into a big ball. Its original size couldn't be compared at all. 5 chains turned into a ball. This mysterious 9 underworld iron shrank too much. Tang Zheng sighed resentfully. Dezang of Gugurio raised his head and said, "You're an amateur. There were too many impurities in the chains just now. Obviously, the people who refined the mysterious 9 underworld iron before were very careless, or their strength was limited. They couldn't refine all the impurities in it." Dezang of Gugurio redid it, removed the rot and took the essence, and then it changed greatly into this appearance. In the past, when Tang Zheng faced such a huge amount of mysterious 9 underworld iron, he didn't know what magic weapon to make, because there were too many choices. But now, there was only one big ball left. He basically had no choice. Thus, he could only forge one sword. However, the mysterious 9 underworld iron suppressed the dark side of Dezang of Gugurio. It was a matter of great importance. If he took out the mysterious 9 underworld iron, he might not have the chance to take it back. He didn't take the initiative to mention it. After all, the mysterious 9 underworld iron was also an item of the ghost realm. If the Dezang of Gugurio took it back, it would be returning it to its original owner. Moreover, the dark side of Dezang of Gugurio was suppressed in it, which was equivalent to a time bomb. Tang Zheng was also very worried. If one day in the future, the dark side of Dezang of Gugurio regained freedom, and the mysterious 9 underworld iron was by his side, wouldn't he be the first to bear the brunt of the attack? However, the mysterious 9 underworld iron was a rare material for refining magic weapons. After this village, there wouldn't be such a shop. Tang Zheng was currently lacking an attack magic weapon. Ever since the War Spirit Sword fell into the hands of Caillou, there wasn't a magic weapon that he could use to display the heaven-flying immortal sword technique and the Tai Chi two-form sword technique. This was tantamount to greatly reducing his combat strength. Of course, he wanted to make up for it. Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, a ball flew to his eyelids. He was stunned and looked at the Dezang of Gugurio suspiciously. The Dezang of Gugurio said, "I have been searching for so many years, but I still couldn't find the mysterious 9 underworld iron. In the end, it is in your hands. Perhaps, it should belong to you and not me." Tang Zheng was thoughtful, and looked at the Dezang of Gugurio as if he didn't understand. He only heard the Dezang of Gugurio continue to say, "This is the will of the heavens. Then I will follow the will of the heavens and return the mysterious 9 underworld iron to you." "You want to return it to me?" Tang Zheng was really shocked, and looked at the Dezang of Gugurio in disbelief. The Dezang of Gugurio nodded solemnly, "Yes, I hope you can keep it well. Since the mysterious 9 underworld iron is destined to belong to you, and my dark side is suppressed in it, maybe in the future, you will think of a way to solve this problem once and for all." Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You can't, how can I? You have full confidence in me. The key is that even I don't have this blind confidence." Chapter 1387. Tang Zheng stared deeply at Dezang of Gugurio, convinced that he was not speaking casually. Seeing the round mysterious 9 nether iron spinning in front of him, he was sure that the other party was serious. "All right then." Tang Zheng was not a long-winded person, simply taking the mysterious 9 nether iron in his hand. A cold feeling came from the mysterious 9 nether iron, drilling into his palm, as if to cool his blood. But this feeling immediately disappeared. The mysterious 9-nether iron had a special nature, containing yin qi, so this kind of situation occurred. The mysterious 9-nether iron had already returned to its pitch-black color, firmly attracting Tang Jing's gaze, but after looking for a while, he still could not find any clues. Dezang of Gugurio's dark side was suppressed within, and it was not something that could be seen with just one's eyes. I hope that one day you can find a way to solve this once and for all. Dezang of Gugurio said sincerely. Tang Jing's mouth revealed a bitter smile, saying, "If you don't have a way, how can I?" Ksitigaba Bodhisattva could not deny it. He looked at him with bright eyes. Tang Jing put the mysterious 9-nether iron back into Sumeru world, and Dezang of Gugurio looked at Tang Jing with an even brighter gaze, saying meaningfully, "Tang Jing, I really did not think that you would use that kind of method to escape the sea of bitterness." Tang Jing's head thumped, this time back to the main topic, and his body could not help but tense up. After all, he did not follow Dezang of Gugurio's words to turn back and be saved, and escape the sea of bitterness. Instead, he used the sky-swallowing technique to forcefully destroy the sea of bitterness, and then escape. The sea of bitterness was of great significance to Dezang of Gugurio, and if he vented his anger on Tang Jing, then Tang Jing's days would not be easy. He had to be on guard. Dezang of Gugurio obviously noticed the change in Tang Jing. He smiled faintly and said, "Are you afraid of me?" Tang Jing's expression turned cold as he said somewhat unnaturally, "Why would I be afraid of you?" Dezang of Gugurio nodded heavily. "Yes, you don't have to be afraid of me. But you must be worried that I will vent my anger on you because of the sea of misery." Tang Jing smiled and shrugged. "If that's the case, then there's nothing I can do." "Hee, you're quite open-minded. If I hadn't experienced all these things, I definitely wouldn't have let you go so easily. Because you are far from my original intention. I want you to comprehend the true essence of the Ksitigaba Sutra, and thus gain enlightenment. Repent and be saved, and be free from the sea of bitterness." Dezang of Gugurio said with a complicated tone. Tang Jing smiled bitterly. He didn't guess wrong. In fact, the trick to escape the sea of bitterness was in the Ksitigaba Sutra. It's just that he couldn't convince himself to accept Dezang of Gugurio's idea. Naturally, he couldn't comprehend the true essence of it. "You don't have to say any more. After I merged with the dark side, I know everything you did in the sea of bitterness. I have to say that you are very lucky to have such a heaven-defying ability like the sky-swallowing technique. Perhaps, this is the will of the heavens." Dezang of Gugurio said in a deep voice. "If that's the case, then I naturally won't blame you for the sea of bitterness." Dezang of Gugurio paused for a moment and concluded. Tang Jing was secretly delighted. Li Xiaotian's eyes lit up, and she couldn't hide her excitement. She couldn't help but hold Tang Jing's hand and look up at him. Looking at her eyes, Tang Jing's heart tightened. He naturally thought of her situation and said, "Dezang of Gugurio, no matter what you think, regarding Li Xiaotian, I will never retreat. Even if you want to trap me in another place, I will not compromise even half a step." Li Xiaotian didn't expect Tang Jing to say these words so firmly. There was no room for negotiation. Her face suddenly changed. She covered Tang Jing's mouth and begged, "Don't say any more. I'd rather stay in the ghost realm. As long as you are safe and sound, you have more important responsibilities. You can't be trapped in the ghost realm because of me." After experiencing all the previous things, Li Xiaotian's heart was shaken. She didn't want Tang Jing to repeat the same mistake and be trapped again. She would rather sacrifice herself than let Tang Jing have any mishaps. Tang Jing held her hand tightly. He moved his lips and said, "I've made up my mind. No one can change it. I have to resurrect you. This is my promise to you. I will definitely do it." Li Xiaotian's heart warmed. She said emotionally, "Tang Jing, why do you have to do this?" Tang Jing gazed at her gently and said affectionately, "You've done so many things for me, but I haven't done anything for you. This is to make up for my previous mistakes." Li Xiaotian shook her head slightly. "You weren't wrong before. You've always done well." "No, I didn't do enough before." The two pairs of hands firmly held each other, and the two pairs of eyes stared at each other without blinking. You have me in you, I have you in me. Cough. A dry cough interrupted their sentimental conversation. They were suddenly startled. When they came back to their senses, Li Xiaotian shyly looked at Tang Zheng and lowered her head. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at Dezang of Gugurio. This dry cough was made by Dezang of Gugurio. He looked at them with a complicated expression and said, I haven't said anything yet. Why are you guys like this? Tang Zheng had already experienced Dezang of Gugurio's stubbornness. He lightly said, what can your words change? Are you going to help her return to life? Tang Zheng didn't expect this at all. Dezang of Gugurio's temper was even worse than his. He didn't expect anything at all. Dezang of Gugurio looked at him seriously and asked, is that how you see me? Tang Zheng wasn't afraid of him getting angry. He nodded and said, you have always been this kind of person, right? Dezang of Gugurio didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He let out a long sigh and said, I used to stick to my principles and thought that principles couldn't be broken. But you gave me a vivid lesson. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. He didn't quite understand and asked, what do you mean? Dezang of Gugurio didn't directly answer. Instead, he meaningfully said, it is important for a person to have principles. But principles aren't unbreakable. Sometimes, principles can be changed. Changed? Tang Zheng's eyes widened. Did he think that the sun rose from the west? Wasn't this a fantasy? If these words were said by someone else, Tang Zheng wouldn't question it. He wouldn't have such a big reaction. But these words were said by Dezang of Gugurio, so he couldn't believe it. Dezang of Gugurio sighed and said, am I really a synonym for stubbornness in your heart? I can also change. Moreover, all of these changes were brought about by you. Tang Zheng gradually understood Dezang of Gugurio's intentions. He thought for a while and his eyes lit up as he said, could it be that you agree to let Li Xiaotian come back to life? Li Xiaotian's heart also jumped to her throat. This answer was related to her life and death. It was related to whether she could stay by Tang Zheng's side in the future. Looking at their burning eyes, Dezang of Gugurio's eyes became deep. In the end, he said in a deep voice, Tang Zheng, I agree to let Li Xiaotian come back to life. This is a victory that you fought for. Chapter 1388. This victory was not easy to come by. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at each other, almost unable to believe their ears. Dezang of Gugurio actually agreed to let Li Xiaotian return to the living world. Did the sun rise from the west? Are you serious? Tang Zheng confirmed in disbelief. Dezang of Gugurio said seriously, do you want me to take back what I said just now? No. Tang Zheng hurriedly waved his hand, and Li Xiaotian also smiled through her tears. Her smile was like a flower, and she looked at Tang Zheng with tenderness. Tang Zheng laughed foolishly. This victory was not easy to come by. He was almost desperate, but he was rescued from the jaws of death. Then what are we waiting for? Tang Zheng couldn't wait. Don't worry, I won't change my mind so quickly. Dezang of Gugurio said. Yes. Dezang of Gugurio looked at the two of them deeply and said, don't think that I will agree with your point of view just because I changed my mind. I will let you understand what a big mistake is. Tang Zheng thought and asked, do you still think that saving all living beings and equality is right? Dezang of Gugurio nodded without hesitation. This was his lifelong belief, the foundation that inspired him to work hard. How could he be shaken? If this belief was shaken, it would be like the foundation of a tall building being shaken, and everything would fall apart. Tang Zheng sighed and did not force him. He said, everyone has their own aspirations, and they all have their own beliefs and perseverance. There is no need to let the other party completely approve of you. Dezang of Gugurio shook his head. No, when you come to the world of spirits and souls again in the future, you will witness my success. The world of spirits and souls will have a new atmosphere, thriving, and not so lifeless like a pool of stagnant water. Seeing that he was full of confidence, Tang Zheng did not dwell on this issue. Although they had experienced countless dangers on this trip, at least the mission was completed. Moreover, there were additional rewards. Following this, the Dezang of Gugurio began to deal with the affairs of the ghost realm. Song Jiangwang had escaped, but the Dezang of Gugurio did not pay any attention to him. In his eyes, Dezang of Gugurio was no different from other living beings in the world of spirits and souls. He could not cause any big waves. His followers returned to his embrace and carried out his orders meticulously. Tang Zheng witnessed all this with his own eyes, and he couldn't help but be secretly speechless. Dezang of Gugurio's action was very strong, and his appeal was unparalleled. The craziness of his followers was jaw-dropping. Finally, Dezang of Gugurio dealt with the aftermath of the dark side, and it was time to resurrect Li Xiaotian. It wasn't easy to revive a ghost. It wasn't as simple as letting the soul return to the body. It also required the power of the Eye of Reincarnation. So, they came to the Eye of Reincarnation. The Eye of Reincarnation was still working in an orderly manner. One by one, the ghosts were reincarnated, and the ghost envoys and ghost generals were in charge of the order here. When they saw the Dezang of Gugurio, these ghost envoys and ghost generals saluted him. Even those muddle-headed ghosts stopped and looked at him with reverence. This was a feeling from the bottom of their hearts. In the past, the Dezang of Gugurio had to secretly convert the ghosts in the Eye of Reincarnation, so that after they reincarnated, their souls would agree with his ideas. Now that he didn't have to hide it from others, he could openly purify the ghosts and let them reincarnate. If the ghosts were not converted, naturally, they were not qualified to be reincarnated. Revisiting the old place, Tang Zheng looked at this scene and felt a lot of emotions. The world of spirits and souls had completely undergone earth-shaking changes. At least the Dezang of Gugurio did not completely break off with him, and even agreed to resurrect Li Xiaotian. To a certain extent, the relationship between the two sides was better. The Dezang of Gugurio looked at this group of ghosts and said, "I can see the hope of success from them." Tang Zheng smiled and did not refute, but in his heart, he disagreed. The Dezang of Gugurio no longer tried to persuade Tang Zheng, and directly came under the Eye of Reincarnation. Above his head, the Eye of Reincarnation slowly rotated, emitting a mysterious power. The other ghosts retreated and looked at them curiously. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian also stood under the Eye of Reincarnation, looking at the Dezang of Gugurio with burning eyes, not knowing what he would do. "Take out her body," the Dezang of Gugurio said. Tang Zheng was not surprised. The Dezang of Gugurio must know that he kept her body. So, with a thought from Tang Zheng, Li Xiaotian's body floated in the air, quiet and peaceful, like a sleeping beauty, exactly the same as when she was alive. It was the first time that Li Xiaotian saw himself from this angle. He could not take his eyes off it, and his breathing could not help but quicken. Anyone who saw their own body would have a change in their heart. Of course, this was not an experience that everyone would have. Tang Zheng patted Li Xiaotian's shoulder to comfort him. Li Xiaotian squeezed out a smile and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." The Dezang of Gugurio's expression was normal. He glanced at the body, nodded and said, "You've preserved it well, this is more beneficial for the resurrection." "Then what do we do now?" Tang Zheng asked. "Just watch and see." After the Dezang of Gugurio finished speaking, his eyes focused on Li Xiaotian. "No matter what happens in a while, you don't have to be nervous or afraid." Li Xiaotian smiled faintly, understood. Tang Zheng gently kissed Li Xiaotian's forehead and said, "Leave everything to me." Li Xiaotian smiled, his dimples like a flower. The air suddenly became heavy, everything was quiet, all eyes were fixed on the Dezang of Gugurio. The Dezang of Gugurio slowly raised his hands. Whoosh, a burst of energy rose out of thin air. Li Xiaotian's body steadily stopped right below the Eye of Reincarnation. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian found that he could not move, wrapped in a burst of energy, slowly rising and flying towards the Eye of Reincarnation. Tang Zheng's heart tightened, his eyes burning as he stared at her. The Eye of Reincarnation rotated, like the center of a storm. Suddenly, a beam of light descended from the center, landing on Li Xiaotian's body. She was immediately bathed in a mysterious light. Li Xiaotian found that her body was illuminated. From the inside to the outside, she was completely wrapped in light. Finally, she became transparent. However, her consciousness was very clear, and this process did not cause her any pain. Whoosh! She approached the Eye of Reincarnation in the light, and with a whoosh, she disappeared into the Eye of Reincarnation. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. He could no longer see Li Xiaotian. He was afraid that something bad had happened to her in the Eye of Reincarnation. The Dezang of Gugurio's expression was normal, causing Tang Zheng's heart to gradually calm down. He secretly told himself that the Dezang of Gugurio was so confident that nothing bad would happen to her. Time passed minute by minute, second by second. The Dezang of Gugurio spoke with conviction, rays of golden light rising from his body, fusing into the Eye of Reincarnation. The Eye of Reincarnation rotated even faster, whoosh, 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 the aura was ever-changing. The soul of this life, the body of the previous life, the soul returns to the body, the soul and the body become one, return to the sun and be reborn, the Kitigaba Bodhisattva muttered to himself. As the last word left his mouth, it was like an earth-shattering explosion. The Eye of Reincarnation rumbled even louder than thunder, shaking everyone's heartstrings. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, staring straight at the Eye of Reincarnation. Rays of light shot down from the center, completely landing on Li Xiaotian's body. The body suddenly straightened, as if welcoming the arrival of something. Whoosh! In the rays of light, even more dazzling light spots sprinkled from the Eye of Reincarnation, quickly drifting towards the body. What is this? Tang Zheng exclaimed, thinking that something had happened. The Dezang of Gugurio glanced at him and said, "This is the soul transformed by the Eye of Reincarnation. Only in this way can it truly integrate into her body and return to the sun and be reborn." Tang Zheng suddenly realized that there was such a thing. The other people in the world of spirits and souls might not know about this. Tang Zheng's attention was completely attracted by this scene, and no matter what, there was no way he could look away. The transformed soul completely sprinkled from the Eye of Reincarnation, floating on the body, and in the next second, rushed into the body. The body was suddenly startled, and the straight body bent into an arc. Tang Zheng moved his head thoughtfully, realizing that something seemed to have happened. But all of this was not over yet. The light of the Eye of Reincarnation was still bathing the body, and the light was so bright that the body could not be seen with the naked eye. But Tang Zheng had a feeling that the body was still there, and mysterious changes were taking place. The Dezang of Gugurio stopped his movements and looked at the light with satisfaction, as if admiring his work. The Eye of Reincarnation finally stopped rotating, and the light was completely withdrawn, returning to the Eye of Reincarnation. Li Xiaotian's figure was exposed in front of him again, but she was in a standing position, slender and elegant, like a water lotus that stood alone in the world. Tang Zheng was pleasantly surprised, and couldn't wait to rush over, stopping in front of her. He stretched out his hand, wanting to touch her, but was afraid of disturbing her, so his hand stopped in midair. The Dezang of Gugurio's mouth curved into a smile, but he did not stop him, but looked at the two with interest. Whoosh! Li Xiaotian's eyes opened, overflowing with vitality. Tang Zheng's heart moved. Such a strong vitality was enough to show that he was a living person. "You're finally alive," Tang Zheng stammered, speaking incoherently. Li Xiaotian looked at him indifferently. Her eyes were a bit sluggish, but immediately filled with joy. "Tang Zheng." She hesitated, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. It's me." Tang Zheng hurriedly nodded, his heart slightly sour. Although Li Xiaotian's voice was the same as a ghost's voice, it contained a trace of vitality, and was fundamentally different. Li Xiaotian looked at herself, stretched out her hand, and touched her cheek, saying, "I've really been resurrected." Tang Zheng grabbed her hand and placed it on his cheek. The warm touch was completely different from the original cold. He confirmed that she had indeed been reborn, and that his promise to her had been fulfilled. "You've finally returned to my side." Tang Zheng was emotional, tightly hugging her. Leaning in his embrace was like the safest and most reliable harbor in the world, making his heart feel exceptionally peaceful. Tears flowed out, wetting her clothes. She couldn't help but hug him, as if she was afraid that he would leave. She nodded emotionally, but couldn't say a single word. After a long while, Tang Zheng calmed down a bit, looking at her full of vitality. She was incompatible with the surrounding environment. Chapter 1389. Tang Zheng's heart tightened as he worriedly looked at Li Xiaotian and said in a panicked voice, "I'll take you out of here right away." Li Xiaotian looked at him blankly and asked, "Why?" Tang Zheng couldn't wait and said, "This is the ghost realm, you have a mortal body, the yin qi will harm your body." Li Xiaotian was shocked and realized the seriousness of the problem. She said in a panic, "Then let's leave quickly." However, she muttered in her heart, why didn't she feel anything strange? Dezang of Gugurio looked at the nervous two people and laughed loudly. The two people stared at him blankly, not knowing what to do. "You are worrying for nothing, you don't have to worry about this problem," Dezang of Gugurio said with a smile. The two people looked at each other, they really didn't understand what Dezang of Gugurio meant. Worrying for nothing, isn't that the case? It is for other people, but it's different for her. Dezang of Gugurio pointed at Li Xiaotian. "Li Xiaotian, I presume you don't feel any pain right now?" Li Xiaotian shook her head blankly, she really didn't feel that way. Dezang of Gugurio seemed to have expected this and said, "That's right, because your body won't be harmed by the yin qi at all." Li Xiaotian didn't have a strong reaction, but Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked at Li Xiaotian in bewilderment, as if he wanted to see what was wrong with her body. Unfortunately, he didn't see any clues. But Tang Zheng was very clear about what this meant. He asked in bewilderment, "Is it true? Her body doesn't have to worry about being harmed by the yin qi?" Dezang of Gugurio nodded. "Yes, this is the benefit of being resurrected." Benefits? Tang Zheng didn't quite understand. Could it be that all those who are resurrected will have this ability and won't be afraid of the damage caused by yin qi? If that's the case, won't we be able to travel between the two realms smoothly? Tang Zheng was truly shocked by this deduction. One had to know that even the 10 kings of hell were unable to freely travel between the ghost world and the human world. They were afraid of the yang qi in the human world. However, Li Xiaotian was different. She was a person who had returned to the mortal world. She actually possessed the ability to walk and survive in two worlds at the same time. This was too heaven-defying. Dezang of Gugurio had long seen through Tang Zheng's thoughts and said with a relaxed expression, "Yes, your guess is correct. She does have the ability to freely walk between the two realms. You rely on pure yang energy to resist yin energy, but she is different. She is afraid of yin energy." Tang Zheng was shocked at first, and then he was overjoyed. "That's great." Li Xiaotian also couldn't hide her joy. This was an unexpected surprise. She couldn't describe her feelings anymore. Now in this world, the only one who can do this is her. Dezang of Gugurio added. She was the only one. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were deeply shocked. They looked at each other and as if they had a tacit understanding, they turned to Dezang of Gugurio and bowed to thank him. Dezang of Gugurio, "Thank you." Dezang of Gugurio said lightly, "You fought for this yourselves. There's no need to thank me." Tang Zheng shook his head. "No, without you, I wouldn't have been able to do all this. So I still have to thank you. If you really want to think like this, then think of a way to stop my dark side from rushing out of the 9 underworld mysterious iron once and for all." Dezang of Gugurio pondered for a while and said, "Okay, I'll do my best." Tang Zheng promised. "You can freely travel between the two worlds in the future. I hope you can come to the world of spirits and souls more often. Take a look and witness my victory with your own eyes." Dezang of Gugurio stared at Li Xiaotian with a burning gaze, as if he was still entangled with the previous problem. He seemed to be determined to persuade her. Li Xiaotian glanced at Tang Zheng, and Tang Zheng nodded slightly. This was a life-saving grace, a great kindness. He could still agree to this condition. Moreover, Tang Zheng also wanted to know more about the world of spirits and souls. With Li Xiaotian traveling between the two worlds, his information would be more timely. Li Xiaotian obviously also thought of this point, and nodded directly to agree. Dezang of Gugurio was very gratified. "Although you have been resurrected, you can still comprehend the Ksitagarbha Sutra that I taught you. I hope that one day, you can pry into the great Tao and become a Buddha." Li Xiaotian was stunned for a moment, and asked in bewilderment, "I'm now a martial artist, can I still comprehend the Ksitagarbha Sutra?" Dezang of Gugurio nodded indifferently. Of course, there is an essential difference between martial artists and cultivators. However, My Ksitigarbha Sutra is also fundamentally different from other techniques. There is no specific requirement for the cultivator. As long as you have Buddha in your heart, you can comprehend the Ksitigarbha Sutra and obtain the supreme magical power. This is not a fantasy. Li Xiaotian smiled like a flower. She had already experienced the mystery of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Hearing that she could continue to comprehend the mystery of it, she was naturally very happy. Tang Zheng was stunned. He had always thought that martial artists and cultivators were opposite existences. Although Dezang of Goguryeo cultivated the Ksitigarbha Sutra, he had always thought that Dezang of Goguryeo was a cultivator. Then, his technique could be comprehended by anyone. This was too inconceivable. He realized more and more the profoundness of the Ksitigarbha Sutra. I hope you can comprehend the true meaning of the Ksitigarbha Sutra as soon as possible. Dezang of Goguryeo blessed, at that time, you will know my good intentions for all of this. Li Xiaotian did not comment. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva looked at Tang Zheng and said earnestly, "You have been in the sea of bitterness, and although you have not turned back, you have gained a lot. You are already in the Mahayana realm, and in the future, the responsibility on your shoulders will be even greater. The stronger a person's strength, the greater the responsibility. This is complementary to each other. I hope you will be careful in the future and not forget your original intention." "Yes, I understand." Tang Zheng looked deeply at Dezang of Goguryeo. He understood that these words seemed simple, but in fact, it was a very necessary reminder. Li Xiaotian had been successfully resurrected, which was equivalent to the purpose of their trip. Tang Zheng did not want to stay any longer. After all, they had been in the ghost realm for a long time. He did not know what would happen in the human world. Was his family safe and sound? He could not help but miss his family, lover, and friends. So, he directly said goodbye. Dezang of Goguryeo did not ask him to stay, but repeatedly urged Li Xiaotian to come to the ghost realm more often. Before leaving, Dezang of Goguryeo handed Li Xiaotian a ghost token and said, "The ghost token you used to come to the ghost realm was limited. The place you came to each time was not fixed, and it was very remote. It was too troublesome. This ghost token can help you come here quickly. In the future, I will stay here for a lot of time. You can find me here directly." Li Xiaotian looked at the ghost token in his hand. It was black, and the light of the runes flashed like jumping spirits. "Dezang of Goguryeo, you are so biased." Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why did Dezang of Goguryeo not give him such a treasure in the past? Every time he came to the ghost realm, he would be in the wilderness, and it would take a lot of effort just to find a city. Dezang of Goguryeo looked at them indifferently, turned a deaf ear, and waved his hand, motioning them to leave. Tang Zheng held Li Xiaotian's hand. Li Xiaotian's mind moved, and the ghost token shone brightly, and a black door appeared in front of the two. They walked in, waved goodbye to Dezang of Goguryeo, and left the ghost realm. The ghost gate disappeared without a trace, and the figures of the two disappeared. In the human world, the capital. The night was dark. A gust of cold wind rolled up, and a ghost gate appeared in an alley. The cold wind blew, making people shudder. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian walked out of the ghost gate hand in hand. Then, Li Xiaotian's mind moved, and the ghost gate closed. The alley returned to calm, and only the two of them were left. They looked at each other and smiled. Li Xiaotian could not help but lean into his arms, worried about her gains and losses. After all, their relationship had not been accepted by other women. Although Li Xiaotian became braver with every setback, what was done could not be undone. How could she face other people? Would they scold her? Li Xiaotian, who was not afraid of anything, was actually afraid of this. If this were to be spread out, people would laugh their heads off. "Don't worry, they will accept you. You have sacrificed too much. They will understand your heart, just like me." Tang Zheng encouraged and comforted. Li Xiaotian's heart warmed, and she gradually became determined. In the past, Tang Zheng had never spoken to her in such a gentle tone. Now that she heard it, his voice seemed to have magic. A few simple words, a sentence, were enough to make her heart as calm as still water. She forgot all the dangers, and there was only a firm belief in her heart. I like him. This is a matter of course. No matter how they look at me, I don't care. As long as I have him by my side, that's enough. Li Xiaotian silently encouraged herself. Seeing her emotions gradually calm down, Tang Zheng was relieved. The pressure on him was not small, and how could he not understand the thoughts of other girls? This time, he had to go against their wishes. Moreover, Li Xiaotian was involved. He did not know how they would feel. The two walked side by side, hand in hand, like a couple in love, and walked out of the alley together. At this moment, it was late at night. There was almost no one on the street. Whoosh! A ray of light flew over their heads, attracting their attention. Li Xiaotian raised her head to look at the sky, but did not see anything. She could not help but ask worriedly, "What's going on?" Tang Zheng also frowned. Just now, the whistling wind was biting cold. Obviously, it was not an ordinary person. That person was definitely a cultivator, because the other party was flying in the air. This meant that the other party's cultivation was not low. Otherwise, there was no way to do this. In the middle of the night, there was actually someone flying in the air in the capital. How could Tang Zheng sit and watch? He did not care about going home to report the good news, and directly pulled Li Xiaotian to chase after the other party. The two did not fly in the sky. Instead, they followed the streets and alleys, relying on clues to find the other party's whereabouts. At this moment, there was no trace of people. There was no one at all, so he could easily track the other party's whereabouts. In the sky ahead, there was light flowing, and the light of treasures shot in all directions. It seemed that there was more than one cultivator. The situation was not clear. Chapter 1390. Tang Zheng remained silent. His gaze shifted unpredictably as he locked onto the people in mid-air. One of them was actually an old acquaintance of Mo Xie. Mo Xie was the leader of the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor, but at this moment, he no longer had that kind of temperament. Instead, he was like a stray dog that was pincered in front and behind, battered and exhausted. Chapter 1391. The shooting sun arrow hovered in the air, flashing with golden light, as if it could shoot at someone again at any time. The arrow just now was fast, ruthless, and accurate, directly destroying a treasure sword. It was very intimidating. Among the martial artists, no one had seen the shooting sun arrow, but they understood that it was a divine weapon. Who is it? Who dares to ruin our good thing? The martial artist roared, furious. Mo Xie bit his lips, his face changing, sometimes white, sometimes red. He knew that the shooting sun arrow had appeared, so its master must be nearby. However, didn't he hear that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were both dead? Who had gotten the shooting sun arrows? Although Mo Xie went to the 100,000 mountains, he still heard the news of Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's death on the way. At that time, he felt particularly relieved. Tang Zheng stopped him time and time again. Li Xiaotian bent her bow and shot arrows, shooting down all the souls of the golden crow, completely cutting off his thoughts. Mo Xie didn't have the slightest good impression of these two people, and he wanted to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Hearing the news of their deaths, Mo Xie was happy and disappointed. It was a pity that he didn't have the chance to kill them personally. All eyes turned to the ground. The shooting sun arrows were shot from the ground, so the attacker was naturally on the ground. Tang Zheng had already saved Li Xiaotian, so he was naturally not afraid of exposing the news that he was not dead. He pulled Li Xiaotian and flew up lightly. Swish! All eyes were focused on the two of them. The martial artist didn't know them and scolded in a stern voice, "Who are you? How dare you ruin our good thing? Don't you want to live?" Tang Zheng sneered and didn't comment. Seeing this, the martial artist felt that his dignity was seriously challenged, and he was even more furious. Like a volcanic eruption, he shouted, "You two are cultivators, not afraid of death. How dare you show up in front of us?" Martial artists were not strangers to cultivators and knew a little about cultivators. Therefore, when they saw the two of them fly up into the air, they naturally thought of them as part of the cultivators' camp. Tang Zheng didn't pay any attention to the martial artist. Instead, He looked at Mo Xie. Obviously, Mo Xie's eyes were more unique. Ever since Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian appeared, his eyes were wide open, as if he had seen a ghost. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the two of them were still alive. Furthermore, they were still alive and well. Now that they had met under such circumstances, his prestige would definitely be swept to the ground. After all, that wretched appearance just now was really too damaging to his prestige. You guys actually didn't die. Mo Xie extended a trembling finger and pointed at the two of them from afar as she said in shock. Tang Zheng glanced at him and said, Mo Xie, you haven't died yet, so how could I die so quickly? Tang Zheng, didn't the rumors say that you were all dead? Mo Xie asked in disbelief. You also know that it's just a rumor. After all, rumors are the most untrustworthy in this world. Tang Zheng said with a smile that was not a smile. Untrustworthy, untrustworthy. These three words echoed in Mo Xie's mind. Looking at Tang Zheng's smile that was not a smile, his heart turned cold. He already understood that this was definitely not that simple. Tang Zheng deliberately let this rumor fester, and many people believed it to be true. There must be some purpose behind this. However, he couldn't guess what Tang Zheng was doing. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he stared at Tang Zheng. He had already seen through the clues. His cultivation has increased. He actually couldn't see through Tang Zheng's cultivation. One had to know that he was in the Mahayana realm, and Tang Zheng used to be in the 9th stage of the demigod realm. Since he couldn't see through him, the other must have crossed that threshold. You're also in the Mahayana realm? Mo Xie asked in shock. Tang Zheng smiled and didn't answer, but it was equivalent to a tacit agreement. Mo Xie's face turned deathly pale as he immediately realized that his situation was even worse. There were martial artists in front of him and behind him was Tang Zheng. He was attacked from the front and back and was pincered from the front and back. This was a dead end. Most importantly, Tang Zheng had endured for so long because he wanted to break through. Now that he had returned with a strong momentum, he had a big plan. Of course, Mo Xie didn't know that Tang Zheng was trying to buy time for Li Xiaotian to be resurrected, so he played along and made the world think that he was dead. Tang Zheng didn't explain further. He glanced at Mo Xie's expression and said, Mo Xie, you just said that you went to the 100,000 mountains. Why did you go there? Apart from Buzhou Mountain, there was no other valuable thing in the 100,000 mountains, so he was very puzzled as to why Mo Xie went there. Mo Xie's heart tightened. He snorted and said, Why should I tell you? Tang Zheng shook his head and said, Mo Xie, you still don't understand the current situation. If I didn't take action, do you think you could escape from these warriors unscathed? Mo Xie's face turned red. He raised his head and said stubbornly, No matter what, I don't need your pity. I won't pity you. Everything you've done to me, even if I kill you, it won't be enough to relieve the hatred in my heart. Why would I pity you? Tang Zheng said coldly. Mo Xie had already expected this and wasn't surprised. He laughed loudly, That's right. You can't wait to kill me, but am I not the same? You've ruined my plans time and time again, causing the Yellow Emperor to have no hope of reviving. You are the enemy of my entire Yellow Emperor tribe. If you hadn't summoned 9 golden crows and almost destroyed the world, why would I have stopped you? You brought all of this upon yourself. You don't care about the life and death of others, so how could you blame me for ruining your plans? Tang Zheng snorted disdainfully, not agreeing with Mo Xie's words. Mo Xie was speechless. Of course he knew the price of everything he had done. If he didn't have a choice, he definitely wouldn't have done this. But in order to revive the Yellow Emperor, in order to stop Kaiyu's plan, he had no choice but to take the risk. Mo Xie was shocked by Tang Zheng's few words and was almost speechless. The other martial artists understood and knew Tang Zheng's identity. They looked at him in shock, bewildered. Their expressions changed as they asked, You're Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng slightly turned his head and stared at the martial artists. He sneered, It seems that you've also heard of my name. Then who can tell me who you are? How did your cultivations suddenly increase by leaps and bounds? How did you become so strange? You want us to speak? Dream on. The martial artists weren't afraid and instead tried to fight back. You and Monsieur are both cultivators, so you are the natural enemies of us martial artists. This is the blessing of the heavens for the two of you to appear in front of us together. Then don't blame us for being impolite." Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment before he began to laugh loudly. This group of martial artists were really arrogant. They actually treated him as nothing and wanted to get rid of him and Monsieur together. "You don't have much ability, but your tone isn't small." Li Xiaotian agreed. In the ghost realm, even in such a dangerous situation, Tang Zheng was still able to escape. Although this group of martial artists was powerful, she felt that it was laughable to look down on Tang Zheng like this. He didn't know whose subordinate the other party was, but he was actually so arrogant and conceited. The martial artist obviously did not think that he was arrogant, but was full of confidence as he said, "Kill them and report back." The others nodded in agreement. A fierce battle was unavoidable. Tang Zheng nodded towards Li Xiaotian and warned, "Be careful later." Li Xiaotian smiled, patted the heaven-shocking bow in his hands, and said, "I have this, they can't hurt me." Whiz. Without saying a word, Tang Zheng rushed towards the martial artists. The martial artists roared and rushed towards Tang Zheng with killing intent, as if they were determined to win. On the contrary, Monsieur relaxed. No one was targeting him anymore. He wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but his curiosity made him stop in his tracks. Tang Zheng had come back from the dead, and would definitely become his formidable opponent. He wanted to find out how strong Tang Zheng had become. Whoosh whoosh. A martial artist raised the large blade in his hand and slashed down. The blade light was dazzling, and the invisible force attacked Tang Zheng's face first. However, a black hole appeared in front of Tang Zheng, and the sharp qi and the flashing treasure were all sucked into the black hole, disappearing without a trace. Hey! When the martial artists saw this, they were all shocked. It was obvious that they had never seen such a divine ability before. Tang Zheng pointed his finger at a martial artist, and the other party immediately discovered that he was unable to move, as he was firmly bound by the suction force of the black hole. He struggled non-stop, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't break free from this terrifying power at all. Whiz. This martial artist had no choice but to fly directly towards the black hole. He was quickly swallowed by the black hole and disappeared. Tang Zheng's heart stirred, and a portion of his mind was immersed in the heavenly realm. When the martial artist was sucked into the black hole, he did not appear in the heavenly realm, but there was an additional ball of energy in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng was shocked and could not help but feel a lingering fear. Back then, he had used the soul-devouring technique of the sky-swallowing technique to suck the souls of Dezang of Gugurio and Li Xiaotian into the black hole. If he really did that, he was afraid that he would never see Li Xiaotian again. This martial artist was an example. His physical body did not appear in the heavenly realm, and even his soul did not appear in the heavenly realm. Tang Zheng immediately remembered those people who had been sucked into the black hole, but they were not found in the heavenly realm in the end. That could only mean one thing. These people who had been sucked into the black hole had been dissolved into the most primitive energy by the black hole. Humans were made up of a certain amount of energy, and the black hole happened to restore this energy, causing it to return to its original state and turn into energy for Tang Zheng to use. Moreover, this energy also contained a certain amount of vitality, which was the vitality that he used to create plants in the past. I understand. So the vitality in the heavenly realm must be left behind by the people who were sucked into the heavenly realm in the past. This matter was really shocking. Even Tang Zheng had never thought that it would be like this. However, he immediately calmed down. After all, he had figured out the origin of the vitality in the heavenly realm. If he wanted the heavenly realm to have more vitality in the future, he would have a way. However, this move could not be used carelessly unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, these vitality were all fresh lives. The martial artists wanted nothing more than to kill him, so he naturally would not pity these people. Although he was kind-hearted, he would not be so soft-hearted. He turned his gaze and locked onto this group of martial artists as if he saw countless vitality. Chapter 1392. Instantly, Tang Zheng made up his mind. No matter what, He absolutely could not allow the tiger to return to the mountain. Let this group of people leave and spread the news. Tang Zheng would try his best to buy as much time as possible to avoid attracting Ji Wuxiang's attention prematurely. Ji Wuxiang was an ambitious person. Once he had this kind of strength, he would definitely not be willing to be left out. From the fact that he sent people to ambush Mo Xie, it could be seen. His spearhead would not only target Mo Xie, but also Kai Yu. This was definitely the opponent he wanted to defeat the most. After all, Kai Yu's strength was unprecedented. Ji Wuxiang would definitely not sit idly by and do nothing. Instead, he would think of ways to deal with Kai Yu. This was precisely in line with Tang Zheng's goal. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. No matter who won or lost between Ji Wuxiang and Kai Yu, once the outcome of this battle was decided, these two people could not be the winner. Only Tang Zheng, who would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, could be the winner. The only thing he needed to do was to suppress the news that he was not dead and let the outside world continue to think that he was dead. To do this was not difficult. The most crucial part was to get rid of these martial artists in front of him. His gaze lingered in a circle, and the killing intent in his eyes gradually grew stronger. The martial artists clearly sensed this, but they were not afraid. Instead, they volunteered to take a few steps forward, with the intent to fight to the death. Mo Xie's eyes darted around. He finally understood that Tang Zheng's actions were not seeking death or seeking survival in the cracks. After all, their tenacious struggle was worthy of respect. Kill, the martial artists launched a fierce attack again, their killing intent filling the sky. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and a black hole appeared in front of him. Swish, swish, swish. Several martial artists were immediately sucked in without even a scream. The others' expressions did not change. They were indifferent. Come here. Tang Zheng roared. The palm of his hand also produced a suction force. The martial artists did not have time to resist and were sucked into his palm. The martial artist's expression did not change as he shouted, "Why did you catch me? If you don't want to speak, then I will personally pry open your mouths." Tang Zheng's killing intent soared as he coldly said. The martial artist's heart trembled, and he put on a strong front and said, "I'm not afraid of your petty tricks." Tang Zheng smiled faintly. "You're not afraid, are you? We'll see in a moment." As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of black light appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. A miserable shriek resounded through the sky as black light flickered. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and concentrated on dealing with the martial artist. The hero in his hands had completely surrendered. The information in his brain had been taken away by Tang Zheng using the soul-searching technique, and he himself had become a fool. Chapter 1393. Not only was there a lot of information in Tang Zheng's brain, but the star power in the martial artist's meridians was also transmitted into his body through the palm of his hand. The soul-searching technique scoured the martial artist's brain for information, while the sky-swallowing technique absorbed the martial artist's power. This group of martial artists was completely different from other martial artists. Ordinary martial artists had inner strength in their bodies, but this group of martial artists had the original star power in their bodies, which had not been transformed into inner strength at all. This was equivalent to a new cultivation method, which opened Tang Zheng's eyes. While he was shocked, he also felt like he had obtained a treasure. He lacked the star power the most. Since that was the case, he naturally could not waste it. Thus, he looked at the other martial artists with a thought-provoking gaze, like a hungry beast seeing a sumptuous meal. At the same time, the information he searched made his heart sink. This group of martial artists was indeed Ji Wuxiang's men. Ji Wuxiang had already broken through the threshold set by the Emperor of Heaven and soared into the sky. What realm had Ji Wuxiang's cultivation reached? They had no way to tell. However, one thing was certain. Ji Wuxiang could transform martial artists and use the star power to increase their cultivation in a short period of time. In addition, the star power's attribute was higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so even cultivators could not see through a martial artist's cultivation. This group of martial artists was originally the best of the best. After being transformed by Ji Wuxiang, their strength had increased to another level. They had actually soared to the martial king realm, and one of them had even reached the martial emperor realm. What kind of concept was this? In the past, martial artists who had reached the grandmaster realm were very rare. They were considered true experts. But now, the grandmaster realm was not even enough to be looked at. They could only be considered small fries. It was no wonder that this group of martial artists was so arrogant. If they suddenly became so powerful, no matter who it was, they would become arrogant. Tang Jing felt the pressure suddenly increase. The martial artists had become so powerful. It was another rising force that was definitely not inferior to Kai Yu. This was a situation that no one had expected. Ji Wuxiang is really a genius. Tang Jing couldn't help but sigh. All of this was the result of Ji Wuxiang's efforts. If it had been anyone else, even if they had the right time, they definitely wouldn't have been able to achieve this. Although they were enemies, Tang Jing couldn't help but respect them. Of course, he was not afraid. Ji Wuxiang is definitely at the martial emperor realm. This means that he is no weaker than a Mahayana realm cultivator. I wonder how Kai Yu will feel after hearing this news. Kai Yu was ambitious and wholeheartedly wanted to unify the world. If he knew that there was a strong enemy like Ji Wuxiang, he would definitely not sit still and wait for death. His heart skipped a beat, and he was even more certain that he couldn't make it public. While everyone thought that he was dead, he would let them fight to the death. In addition, this group of martial artists could actually activate the heavenly chess to a certain extent. Although it was only a portion of the heavenly chess power, its power was already very impressive. The heavenly chess power was invisible. In fact, even the person being attacked couldn't sense it. Mo Xie was like this. He only felt that his strength seemed to be reduced, which was why he was in such a sorry state. Mo Xie thought that it was because of him, but in fact, he was unknowingly attacked by the heavenly chess. This was especially frightening. Tang Jing was shocked. He looked at the sky and the surroundings. At first, even he didn't notice this. After all, he didn't think in this direction. However, at this moment, he calmed down and really felt the heavenly chess power. This power had already become very faint, faintly discernible. If he didn't know the various mysteries of the heavenly chess, he wouldn't be able to sense it at all. For example, even if Mo Xie told him, he wouldn't be able to sense the heavenly chess power. Tang Jing sighed inwardly. He looked at Mo Xie with a bit of pity in his eyes. The great expert of the Yellow Emperor tribe actually ended up in such a sorry state after being besieged by a group of unknown martial artists. Mo Xie's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little uncomfortable under Tang Jing's gaze. He was on guard, thinking that Tang Jing was going to do him harm. He was very clear about the threat and impact his actions had on Tang Jing. He didn't think that Tang Jing would let him go. However, the shock in Mo Xie's heart was also indescribable. He was in such a sorry state after being chased by this group of martial artists. However, in front of Tang Jing, this group of martial artists didn't cause any waves. Especially the power displayed by the black hole. It terrified Mo Xie. He knew that this was the sky-devouring skill. Obviously, the sky-devouring skill's power had increased again. Tang Jing's cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds. He wasn't inferior to him. Mo Xie already had the thought of leaving. He would act according to the situation and leave before Tang Jing finished off this group of martial artists. Otherwise, what awaited him definitely wouldn't be good. Tang Jing retracted his gaze. He didn't care about Mo Xie's thoughts. Instead, he focused his attention on the martial artists. The martial artists were frightened by his stare. They roared angrily and formed seals with their hands. The power of stars gushed out from their bodies and affected the celestial chess. The power of the celestial chess erupted, attacking Tang Jing one after another. This attack was formless and invisible, making it hard to guard against. However, Tang Jing wasn't an ordinary person. With a thought, he quietly took a step forward and dodged the celestial chess attack. Then, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, he took light and quick steps. Each time, he would take a step before Tian Qi could attack, causing all of Tian Chi's attacks to miss. The martial artists were shocked. Their eyes widened, staring at him as if they had seen a ghost. How did you do it? Li Xiaotian and Mo Xie's hearts shook. They had a strange feeling. What did the martial artists mean by that? Mo Xie was experienced and knowledgeable after all. Staring at Tang Zheng's feet, he came up with an idea. Could it be that he's avoiding something? But why don't I feel anything strange? He didn't understand the celestial chess, so of course he wouldn't feel anything. Immediately, he felt even more confused. He couldn't see through it at all. This was a huge blow to him. Tang Zheng looked at the martial artists with a smile and said, "You are Ji Wuxiang's people. Didn't he tell you that he's not the only one who understands the mysteries of the celestial chess? You're a cultivator, how could you understand the mysteries of the celestial chess?" The other party still couldn't believe it. Tang Zheng snorted coldly. He thought to himself that if Ji Wuxiang hadn't tricked him, this celestial chess might not have succeeded so quickly. He also played a part in this. Now that he thought about it, he was filled with regret. However, he didn't say this out loud. Seeing that Tang Zheng did not say anything, the martial artist began to feel apprehensive. The celestial chess was their greatest reliance, their magic weapon for victory. It seemed that they had been too blindly optimistic. The power of the celestial chess couldn't threaten Tang Zheng, so how could they be a match for Tang Zheng with their little cultivation? They saw that Tang Zheng was like a wisp of green smoke, rushing into the group of martial artists with a whoosh, as if no one was there to catch him. They all roared angrily, but it was useless. They only saw a figure pass by, and a black light flashed. Then, the star power in their bodies flowed out like a flood, leaving their bodies. Tang Zheng didn't have any intention of letting the tiger go back to the mountain. After the sky-devouring technique absorbed their star power, the black hole flashed, and this group of people disappeared into the black hole, turning into wisps of vitality and appearing in the heaven realm. Mo Xie wanted to wait for an opportunity to escape, but before he could even take that step, he didn't expect Tang Zheng to eliminate the enemy in a flash of lightning. He was immediately stunned on the spot, his face stiff, and he didn't know what to do. Li Xiaotian looked at Tang Zheng in high spirits. This was the man of her dreams. That vigorous and decisive appearance was so handsome, enough to charm thousands of girls and make them burst with joy. She couldn't bear to look away, as if it would be her loss if she didn't look. However, Mo Xie didn't want to look at Tang Zheng at all. He wanted nothing more than for him to ignore him, treat him like air, and ignore him. However, Tang Zheng slowly turned his head and locked his gaze on him. Mo Xie's heart was beating like a drum, but he didn't want to show his fear on the surface. He said, "Tang Zheng, you didn't die, and your power has increased greatly." Tang Zheng sneered. "This is all thanks to you. Do you still want me to thank you?" Mo Xie didn't completely understand the meaning of his words. He waved his hand and said, "I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." "Wait." Tang Zheng moved his feet and blocked his path. "You want to leave just like that? We still haven't settled the debt between us." Mo Xie could see the killing intent in Tang Zheng's eyes. His heart trembled as he said, "Since you want to settle the debt, then I'll settle it with you. You've obstructed my Yellow Emperor tribe's operations time and time again, and you keep saying that you're not in cahoots with Kai Yu. Do you think I'll believe you?" Mo Xie had escaped too quickly at the peak of Sky Mountain, so he didn't see what Kai Yu did to Tang Zheng. Although Tang Zheng and Kai Yu were always competing, Mo Xie still had a trace of doubt in his heart. He believed that Tang Zheng and Kai Yu were inextricably linked. "Whether you believe me or not, that's your own business. The problem between me and Kai Yu has nothing to do with you. I just want to settle the debt between us." Tang Zheng didn't comment and said coldly. Mo Xie took a step forward and said in an imposing manner, "What do you want? What are you going to do in the 10,000 mountains?" Tang Zheng directly asked. This was what he had heard from Mo Xie just now. A question mark appeared in his heart. At this critical moment, Mo Xie definitely wasn't going to the 10,000 mountains to relax, but to have some other secret or unspeakable goal. He naturally wanted to get to the bottom of this. Mo Xie's expression changed slightly as he stared straight at Tang Zheng and said, "Why do you care what I'm going to do?" Tang Zheng wrinkled his eyebrows. "If you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for being merciless." While speaking, the black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm again. It grew bigger and bigger, as if it was about to swallow Mo Xie. Mo Xie suddenly froze, his heart trembling. He had already seen the power of the swallowing heaven technique, especially when it had swallowed 9 golden crow souls. It was enough to see how terrifying it was. Mo Xie didn't have the confidence to win. He stared fixedly at Tang Zheng for a few seconds. Seeing that he was about to lose his patience, he hurriedly said, "Do you think I'm afraid of you? I'll openly go to the 10,000 mountains and tell you where it is." He spoke in a dignified manner, but in reality, he was really afraid of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng understood this point, but didn't point it out. He quietly waited for him to continue. "Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you've become stronger. Let me tell you, there are more experts in this world than you can imagine." Mo Xie said in a low voice. "Oh, then I'd like to hear what other experts there are," Tang Zheng said with interest. Chapter 1394. Tang Zheng's expression remained the same. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. %22 22 Moi's eyes widened in suspicion. After a while, he said, %22 Why aren't you surprised at all when you hear about the inner demons? 22 Tang Zheng looked at him with a half-smile and asked, %22 Why should I be surprised? 22 Why should I be surprised? Chapter 1395. You want to see Tian Chanzi? Tang Zheng looked at the stubborn Mo Xie in shock, unable to understand. Mo Xie's expression was firm as he nodded. "Yes, I want to see him. The sooner the better." "Why?" Tang Zheng asked with a frown. "When you see him, everything will naturally come to light." Mo Xie purposely kept them in suspense. Tang Zheng didn't buy it. He simply crossed his arms and said indifferently, "If you don't say it, then don't even think about seeing Tian Chanzi. You know very well the relationship between him and me. If I say you can't see him, then you absolutely can't see him." Tang Zheng's unyielding attitude made Mo Xie suddenly startled. His expression froze as he stammered and didn't know what to do. Mo Xie stared straight at Tang Zheng. His eyes wanted to spit fire, but he also felt helpless. Finally, he sighed helplessly and said, "Okay, then I'll tell you. Actually, this is just a guess of mine." "What guess?" "Master's remnant soul hasn't disappeared. It's just hidden in Tian Chanzi's body." Mo Xie's tone was mixed with excitement. He had originally despaired, but after hearing about the great battle in the deep canyon, his heart immediately lit up with the light of hope. This time it was Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's turn to be shocked. They looked at each other, unable to describe their feelings with words. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul could actually still be in Tian Chanzi's body? If it wasn't for Mo Xie's reaction that didn't seem to be acting, Tang Zheng would probably scoff and think it was nonsense. But now he definitely didn't think it was nonsense. Mo Xie was so excited, so it was most likely true. Mo Xie looked straight at the two of them, very understanding of their feelings, and said, "Now you should be able to understand my feelings." Actually, Mo Xie didn't want to tell anyone about this at all to avoid new problems, especially since Tang Zheng had repeatedly stopped him from reviving the Yellow Emperor. However, this matter involved Tian Chanzi, and he had no way of bypassing Tang Zheng. Therefore, he had no choice but to tell the truth. If Tang Zheng continued to obstruct him, there was nothing he could do. However, he would definitely fight back and seize this one and only opportunity. At that time, the two of them would definitely fight to the death. He stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes, waiting for his answer and reaction. Their eyes met. Tang Zheng could truly understand Mo Xie's feelings. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, "I understand. However, even though Tian Chanzi and I have been together almost all the time, I have never found any signs of the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in his body." Mo Xie faintly smiled and said, "If Master was so easily discovered, then he wouldn't be Master. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes and said, "All right, I'll wait and see." Mo Xie's eyes lit up as he impatiently asked, "You mean you agree?" Tang Zheng calmly asked back, "What reason do I have to refuse? However, I have a question. If you want to use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul to revive him, won't that cause a calamity in the human world?" Mo Xie shook his head like a rattledrum and said, "How could that be? With Master's remnant soul, why would I need to sacrifice so many innocent lives for something so far away?" Tang Zheng's eyebrows twitched as he coldly snorted and said, "You also know that those are innocent lives. However, in your previous actions, have you ever cared about their lives?" Mo Xie's face alternated between red and white as he guiltily explained, "That was because I was in a hurry to revive Master. Only Master can lead this world to a brighter and more glorious future." "A bunch of nonsense." Tang Zheng snorted disdainfully, "This world revolves without anyone. As long as I'm here, I will never agree to sacrifice countless lives to revive one person." These words were resolute and decisive, leaving no room for discussion. Mo Xie understood Tang Zheng's thoughts even more and looked at him with a burning gaze. For a moment, his heart actually wavered a little. Back then, Master was also this determined when he was young. That was why he was able to stand out from countless other tribes and establish great achievements. However, he immediately shook his head and rejected this absurd idea. He thought to himself, how could Tang Zheng be compared to Master? Tang Zheng let out a breath of relief. As long as Mo Xie did not wholeheartedly sacrifice innocent lives to revive the Yellow Emperor, then he would be much more at ease. As for whether or not to stop Mo Xie from reviving the Yellow Emperor, Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment as he could not find an answer for now. Tang Zheng chose to agree because he also wanted to know whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in Tian Chanzi's body. He had seen the power of this remnant soul. This was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so of course he could not ignore it. Only Mo Xie could find out whether or not the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in existence. Both sides reached an agreement, and Tang Zheng brought Mo Xie home. Mo Xie looked at Tang Zheng from time to time and asked about the final situation of the battle at the peak of Sky Mountain. Tang Zheng did not mention that Li Xiaotian did not hesitate to sacrifice his life for him. Not long after, the three of them arrived at a place not far from the villa. The formation had already been activated, blocking their path. Tang Zheng was familiar with the place. He activated the formation and walked in with Mo Xie. Mo Xie looked around and understood, "You've made your home impregnable. It's no wonder that even though news of your death has spread, this place hasn't suffered too many attacks. You've made so many enemies. This result isn't easy to achieve." Tang Zheng also looked around, deliberately avoiding the patrolling tribe warriors, and quietly walked to the villa in the middle. Halfway there, he glanced at Mo Xie and said indifferently, "If you want to have any ideas about this place, you have to first see how many lives you have. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." Tang Zheng's words were not exaggerated. Not only did the house have a formation as the first defense system, but there was also the Empyrean Fairy, an expert, guarding it. It was not a place that ordinary people could invade. The villa area was very quiet. Obviously, during the time he was away, it was quite peaceful here. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. The three of them silently appeared outside Tian Chanzi's window. "Who is it?" A low shout came from inside the house, and a sharp aura shot out through the window. Tian Chanzi had discovered their whereabouts. Tang Zheng flew in through the window, and a sharp attack came unexpectedly. He casually reached out and dissolved the attack, saying, "Tian Chanzi, it's me." His voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder, shocking Tian Chanzi and stopping his follow-up attacks. Ding! The lights were on, and there were three more people in the room. Tian Chanzi's pupils shrank, and he first found Tang Zheng. He could not hide his surprise and said, "You're back." Although it was not the first time Tang Zheng went to the ghost realm, Tian Chanzi was still very worried. After all, this time was different from before. He was going to bring Li Xiaotian back to life. Tian Chanzi knew that he could never do it. In this world, only Tang Zheng dared to do so. But now Tang Zheng was standing in front of him alive, and Li Xiaotian was standing beside him, which meant that it was a success. Tian Chanzi really wanted to cheer a few times and give Tang Jing a big hug, but his eyes moved slightly, and his smile immediately froze. It was as if his face suddenly changed. His smile disappeared, and with a shua, he became incomparably gloomy. He stared straight at Mo Xie, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His entire body shivered, and he was ready to attack. He cautiously said, "It's you. You actually dare to come here." Tian Chanzi had fought with Mo Xie several times, and his impression of this face was too deep. He did not expect to see this face in his room. How could he not be surprised? In a flash, many thoughts flashed through his mind. Could it be that Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were controlled by Mo Xie, and were forced to bring him here? Tian Chanzi was ready to fight at any time, and he stared at Mo Xie like a tiger watching its prey. Mo Xie's expression was excited, as if he had seen a treasure, and he stared at Tian Chanzi, which made Tian Chanzi's heart tremble. "What are you looking at me for?" Tian Chanzi asked, his heart palpitating. Mo Xie stretched out his hand, wanting to grab Tian Chanzi and carefully examine him. Tian Chanzi suddenly stepped back, and with a whoosh, a sword light flashed, and the cold light of the long sword was in front of him, ready to fight. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily, and said, "Tian Chanzi, don't have such a big reaction." Tian Chanzi looked at him and said, "Boy, don't worry, I'm here, and I won't let him do whatever he wants. I will definitely save you." "Save me." Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment, and pointed at his nose. His eyes rolled, and he suddenly realized that Tian Chanzi had misunderstood. "Tian Chanzi, you don't need to save me, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm not being threatened by him." Tang Zheng's explanation didn't dispel Tian Chanzi's doubts, and he stared hatefully at Mo Xie, saying, "Did you cast some kind of evil spell on Tang Zheng, so that's why he said those words to numb me?" Seeing that his misunderstanding was getting deeper and deeper, Tang Zheng hurriedly walked over and grabbed his arm. Mo Xie didn't move. Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng's hand in shock, and then looked at the familiar face in front of him, confirming that it was Tang Zheng, and not someone else in disguise. "Boy, what the hell are you doing?" Tian Chanzi asked, bewildered. "I'm not doing anything, someone wants to see you, and I just brought him here," Tang Zheng said, pointing at Mo Xie. "He wants to see me?" Tian Chanzi doubtfully confirmed that Tang Zheng wasn't being threatened, but after hearing Tang Zheng's words, he felt that it was inconceivable. "Yes, he wants to see you," Tang Zheng repeated. "What's there to see him for? He's our enemy, and you brought him here, aren't you afraid of danger?" Tian Chanzi asked in a bad mood. He had a deep understanding of Mo Xie's power, which was why he was so afraid of Mo Xie. Mo Xie didn't get angry, and only said awkwardly, "It's true that I want to see you, but I have something very important to confirm with you." "I have nothing to talk about with you," Tian Chanzi said bluntly, and secretly winked at Tang Zheng, as if to say that they should solve this problem together. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, and said, "Tian Chanzi, don't worry, he really has something to talk to you about." Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't take the bait, Tian Chanzi was helpless, and complained about him in his heart, saying, "What business could there be between him and me?" Mo Xie stared at Tian Chanzi, but couldn't see anything for a while, so he simply said, "I want to confirm whether or not Master's remnant soul is still in your body." Chapter 1396. Tian Chanzi obviously knew who Mo Xie's master was. It was the Yellow Emperor. The Emperor's remnant soul had left a deep impression on him. It was the first time in his life that he had lost control of his body. It was more frightening than the fear of death. Fortunately, he used his perseverance to take back the initiative. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had disappeared without a trace, as if it had disappeared from the world. His face was ashen as he bitterly glared at Mo Xie and said, "You're really daydreaming. You still want to find that remnant soul in my body." Mo Xie didn't have much of a reaction as he stubbornly said, "Master's remnant soul appeared in your body before, so of course I have reason to believe that it is still in your body." "Nonsense. If it was in my body, then would I still be standing here alive?" "Humph, haven't I already been controlled by him?" Tian Chanzi unhappily retorted. Mo Xie calmly said, "Master's remnant soul has been here for so many years and is already very weak. You are also not an ordinary person, so of course he can't always control you. That's why he is still in your body. You make it sound so amazing. It's like you really saw it with your own eyes. Tian Chanzi curled his lips and said disdainfully. Mo Xie said, although I didn't see it with my own eyes, I believe in Master. His remnant soul won't scatter so easily. Seeing him speak with such certainty, not only did Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian somewhat believe him, but even Tian Chanzi couldn't help but feel his heart beat like a drum. Could it be that the remnant soul is still in my body? He hurriedly circulated his energy and checked his body. As usual, he didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Immediately, he hurriedly suppressed his doubts and firmly said, "This is my own body, so I have the most right to speak. How is it your turn to tell me what to do?" Mo Xie didn't give up and said, "I only need to check it once." "In your dreams." Tian Chanzi turned his head. There was no room for discussion. Mo Xie's face froze. His heart felt like it was on a roller coaster, falling from the peak to the bottom. But he still didn't give up. He turned his head to look at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted him to persuade him. Tang Zheng's head moved. He was not in a hurry to convince Tian Chanzi. Instead, he said, "Mo Xie, this matter can't be rushed. As the saying goes, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks." Mo Xie opened her mouth as if she wanted to refute, but swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She bitterly nodded, her expression lonely. "I'll stay. One day, I'll get to the bottom of this," Mo Xie said unwillingly. Tian Chanzi snorted and didn't even look at him. The two of them were clearly competing. Tang Zheng looked on coldly. His heart moved. Leaving Mo Xie here was not a good thing. After all, this was his base camp. There were too many people he cared about. If he left Mo Xie alone, what if he hurt them? Therefore, Mo Xie absolutely could not be given too much freedom. "Mo Xie, didn't you want to know if the remnant soul is still there? Then you can only wait. During this time, for the sake of safety, I have to find another place for you." Mo Xie raised an eyebrow and asked, "Where?" "Shu Mi Tian." Tang Zheng raised his hand. "You have to stay in my Shu Mi Tian for a period of time. Of course, if you don't agree, then it's a different matter." Mo Xie's expression changed uncertainly. He stared at Tang Zheng's hand. He knew very well that this was a risky move. Once he entered Shu Mi Tian, he would be in an absolutely passive situation. In the future, would he be able to break through the restrictions of Shu Mi Tian? What if Tang Zheng imprisoned him for life? After all, Tang Zheng was the master of Shu Mi Tian. But if he didn't agree, then he would never be able to find out if the remnant soul was still there. "I'm all alone anyway. This is my only chance to turn defeat into victory. If I give up because I'm afraid, then I'll never be able to resurrect Master." His mind was full of thoughts as he pondered. Tang Zheng must be like me. He also wants to find out if the remnant soul is still there. This concerns Tian Chanzi's safety. He definitely won't dare to take it lightly. So, he will definitely let it go. Once there was a chance to leave Shu Mi Tian, then he wouldn't be imprisoned in Shu Mi Tian forever. As long as there was a chance to see the light of day again, he was confident that he could turn danger into safety. "Okay, I promise you." After a while, he nodded heavily and agreed. Tian Chanzi was stunned for a moment. He looked at Mo Xie as if he was looking at a fool. He actually agreed to this condition. This risk was too big. Tang Zheng wasn't surprised because he knew what the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul meant to Mo Xie. He had to give it his all. As for Shu Mi Tian, he wasn't worried about Mo Xie running amok there. Because there was still a Master Shura in Shu Mi Tian. During the trip to the world of spirits and souls, Shura was taken in by Dezang of Gugurio. However, when Tang Zheng left the world of spirits and souls, Dezang of Gugurio returned Shura to him. Dezang of Gugurio found a lot of marks of Tang Zheng on Shura's body. This was because he recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra every day and left the marks on Shura's body. As the parties involved, Shura and Tang Zheng didn't notice this. However, the powerful Dezang of Gugurio did. Suddenly, he understood one thing. Shura and Tang Zheng already had some kind of mysterious connection. Rashly taking Shura away from Tang Zheng might not be a good thing. Moreover, Tang Zheng actually gave Shura wisdom. This was something that Dezang of Gugurio didn't expect, and it made him very happy. He understood the value of variables and hoped that Tang Zheng could create more miracles. After Shura experienced the war in the world of spirits and souls, he seemed to be in awe of Tang Zheng. Since returning from the world of spirits and souls, he quietly stayed in Shu Mitien. With Shura monitoring Mo Xie, Tang Zheng wasn't worried that he would cause any trouble. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and Shu Mitien on his wrist lit up. He said, "Then come in." Mo Xie gave up resisting and calmed down. With a flash of light, he disappeared and appeared in Shu Mitien. Mo Xie and Tang Zheng's skills were similar. If Mo Xie didn't give up resisting, Tang Zheng wouldn't be able to take him in even with Shu Mitien. Mo Xie blinked and found himself in Shu Mitien. Shura was standing in front of him. He deeply sized up the Azura and understood Tang Zheng's intentions. Looking at the Azura's covetous eyes, he chose to wait and see. He believed that Tang Zheng would definitely let him out. Tian Chanzi looked like he had seen a ghost. He looked at this scene in disbelief and said, "You brat, you actually made him willingly go to Shu Mitien. TSK, amazing." As he said this, he gave a thumbs up. It was harder to make an expert like Mo Xie yield than to kill him, but Tang Zheng did it just like that. It was really amazing. Tang Zheng looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile and said, "Isn't this all thanks to you? If he didn't want to know if you have the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul in your body, he wouldn't have agreed to my condition." Tian Chanzi snorted and rolled his eyes, saying, "I just said that there's no such thing as a remnant soul in my body. How could my body not know? I know better than anyone else. How could I let him check my body with just a few words?" Tang Zheng knew of Heaven Monk's violent temper, so he followed along and said, "Your words are indeed reasonable. How can we be led by the nose by him?" Since Mo Xie was already in Shu Mitien, Tang Zheng wasn't in a hurry to let him out. If he didn't take this opportunity to torture him, he wouldn't be able to vent the anger in his heart. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry to persuade Tian Chanzi. He understood Tian Chanzi and knew that there was a trace of doubt in his heart. If it were anyone else, their heart would be in a mess upon hearing this news. In the end, everyone wanted to know the answer. Tian Chanzi was no exception. Tang Zheng didn't persuade him, nor did he force him. He waited for Tian Chanzi to take the initiative to speak. Tian Chanzi was still panting with anger, saying, "Kid, you're getting more and more reckless. You even dare to bring back anyone. That's Mo Xie, not a cat or dog." Tang Zheng modestly nodded and said, "Yes, what you said. If there's such a thing in the future, I'll definitely deal with the other party first." "Hey!" Tian Chanzi was stunned and said resentfully, "It's not like that. I just think that your actions are too risky. This is a critical time, not a normal time. You just came back, so you don't know that the situation in the human world has changed greatly, right?" Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "What changes? Speaking of which, you won't believe it even if you beat me to death." Tian Chanzi laughed, deliberately keeping him in suspense. Tang Zheng didn't rush him. Seeing that he was done with showing off, he finally said, "Martial artists have already walked down the stage of history. The government has already announced the existence of cultivators. Instead, the status of cultivators is highly respected. The government announced the existence of cultivators, and highly respected." Tang Zheng was really shocked. In any case, he didn't expect this result. Why would the government do this? What good would it do him? A lot of questions appeared in Tang Zheng's head. Tian Chanzi was very satisfied with Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian's reactions. He looked at the two of them proudly and said, "You definitely can't guess who is the person who is pushing for this. You know this person, and you have a lot of conflicts." Tang Zheng furrowed his eyebrows as several figures flashed through his mind. In the end, it settled on one person. Could it be the chief? Tian Chanzi clapped his hands and praised, "You brat, your brain is really sharp. You actually guessed it right." After a pause, Tian Chanzi laughed and said, "Are you very surprised and taken aback? Not only you, but everyone who knows the inside story is very surprised. He actually pushed for this matter, TSK. Tang Zheng said, there must be a reason for this. Every move of these people has a deep meaning. It's definitely not a spur-of-the-moment action. But what good would it do him? Tang Zheng couldn't think of it. He was eager to ask the chief face to face. However, he calmed down immediately. The situation had changed so much, there must be a lot of twists and turns. Chapter 1397. Tang Zheng was really stunned by this bombshell. The cultivators actually started to chase after the martial artists. Wasn't this the same as how Enuerha dealt with the cultivators back then? No, this was probably the revenge of the cultivators for the enmity of the past. Although it had been hundreds of years, most of the cultivators had not forgotten that shameful thing. The high and mighty cultivators had actually been expelled from this world by the martial artists. This was a great humiliation. No matter what, they would never forget it. Who is behind all this? Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. There were many martial artists around him. Not to mention the big families, there were also those who followed him in the ordinary balance. Most of them were also martial artists. They were also targets to be hunted down. How could he sit back and do nothing? I knew you would ask this. Tian Chanzi said proudly, I sent people to investigate a long time ago. There are already results. Who is the mastermind behind this? Tang Zheng couldn't wait to ask. Tian Chanzi said slowly, actually, you can definitely guess it even if I don't say it. Yes, it's Caillou. Other than him, who else would do such a thing? Although he was not expelled back then, the Devil Clan was expelled after all, and he had many of the people involved back then. Now that they have defeated the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates, they will naturally look for the martial artists to settle this score. Tang Zheng did not say a word. It could be said that he agreed with Tian Chanzi's words. This was also something that Caillou would do. How many martial artists have died? Not too many. After all, there are too many ordinary people. Although it is easier than finding a needle in a haystack, it is impossible to find every martial artist accurately. Tian Chanzi said. What about the martial artists related to us? They have not been affected yet, but I believe it will be soon, especially the Yang family. A tall tree attracts the wind. Caillou will definitely not let them go. Tian Chanzi said worriedly. Caillou is determined to do this, who can resist? However, I've heard of a rumor in the pugilistic world recently that there seems to be a mysterious organization roping in martial artists to become their safe haven. This organization was rumored to be miraculous. It was said that they could fight against Caillou. Many martial artists heard this and went to seek refuge with this mysterious organization. Tian Chanzi frowned and said in surprise. Obviously, Tian Chanzi had not received the latest news about this mysterious organization that had suddenly appeared. Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. He suddenly had an idea and said, this organization is actually not that mysterious. You won't be surprised if I tell you. Oh! Tian Chanzi's eyes widened in curiosity. Azure Dragon Palace. Tang Zheng blurted out, this must be Ji Wuxiang's plan. Besides him, who else would have such a big mouth? How could it be him? Wasn't his mind disturbed by the Emperor of Heaven's words? Tian Chanzi said inexplicably. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and told Tian Chanzi about the martial artists joining forces to kill Mo Xie. Tian Chanzi's expression immediately became very interesting. Not even in his dreams did he think that a martial artist could become so powerful. Even Mo Xie wasn't a match for him, let alone him. Immediately, his confidence suffered a serious blow, and he smiled bitterly with a pale face. The world changes with each passing day, constantly changing. Not only do you make me feel ashamed, even other cultivators have caught up with me. Alas, life is unpredictable. Tang Zheng was not surprised by Tian Chanzi's sigh. He said, this is all because of the heavenly chess. Only by destroying the heavenly chess can we destroy Ji Wuxiang's plan. You also said how powerful the heavenly chess is. How could it be so easy to destroy? Moreover, martial artists have the power of the stars. This is a higher level of energy than the world's spirit energy. This indicates that martial artists have already taken the initiative. Tian Chanzi chattered on. Suddenly, he paused and said thoughtfully, in this world, the Azure Dragon Hall is not the only martial artist. Don't we also have martial artists? Then can we also let them use the power of the stars? Tang Zheng rubbed his temples. After thinking for a while, he said non-committally, I'm afraid it can't be done for the time being. Ji Wuxiang must have grasped a mysterious method to allow martial artists to do this. Heaven Monk let out a long sigh and said, then this is going to be difficult. How could Tang Zheng not know this? Since you're back, then everyone has a backbone. Before, I didn't realize your importance. This time you've been gone for so long, and so many things have happened. Everyone is helpless. Your importance is really showing. Tian Chanzi said with a smile that was not a smile. The news of Tang Zheng's death caused a great shock. The situation in the capital had already undergone subtle changes. The Yang family, who was originally at the peak of their power, had become low-key. It seemed that they could dilute their own existence. The capital was no longer a pile of loose sand. The power of the government had risen again. After all, this was the center of power. Once the government exerted its power, without the Yang family's restrictions, the result could be imagined. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. He patted Tian Chanzi's shoulder and said, don't be modest. Your importance is no less than mine. If the family didn't have you, how could I feel at ease going to the ghost realm? By the way, your trip to the ghost realm seems to have been very fruitful. She was successfully resurrected, and your cultivation, I can't see through it anymore. Did it increase again? Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Zheng with interest and said. Tang Zheng smiled, I'm a bit lucky. My cultivation has reached the 2nd grade of the Mahayana stage. What? Tian Chanzi was so shocked that he almost jumped up. He stared at Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a monster. He said suspiciously, 2nd grade of the Mahayana stage, kid, did you ride a rocket? This speed is too fast. It's just luck, Tang Zheng said modestly. Humph, kid, you really have dogshit luck. Others can't reach this realm even if they cultivate for countless years. But you, kid, have only been cultivating for a few years. Sigh, are Skywalkers really so powerful? Tian Chanzi was incomparably envious. Are you jealous? Tang Zheng joked. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and said, I'm only jealous, not envious. It's really annoying to compare yourself to others. Ha ha, Tian Chanzi, don't be discouraged. I believe you will also have a day like this. Tang Zheng patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. Of course, who am I, Tian Chanzi? Not to mention the 2nd grade of the Mahayana stage, even the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage is not a problem. Tian Chanzi said heroically, but he seemed to have a guilty conscience. His voice was getting smaller and smaller as he said the last few words. The 9th grade of the Mahayana stage was not so easy. In the thousands of years of Kingshuman's history, only the founder of a free sect had reached the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage. Looking at the entire cultivation world, there were very few masters of the 9th grade of the Mahayana stage. Is there any news about the Empyrean fairy? Tang Zheng's expression became slightly more serious as he asked in a deep voice. This was one of the questions he was most concerned about. In the battle on the peak of Sky Mountain, the Empyrean fairy was kidnapped by Kai Yu. In order to force the Emperor of Heaven to appear, the 4 symbols venerables were thrown out and their whereabouts were unknown. Yesterday, I mentioned that the Empyrean fairy was in charge of the family. It was a slip of the pen, sorry. At that time, before he went to the ghost realm, he had told Tian Chanzi to find a way to find out the whereabouts of these 2. Tian Chanzi's face was full of guilt as he said resentfully, I'm really useless. I still don't have any news about her. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly and waved his hand, saying, it's not your fault. The Empyrean fairy is definitely with Kai Yu. Kai Yu's strength is high, so how could an ordinary person find him? Even though he said this, Tian Chanzi still couldn't help but feel guilty. He said, I will continue to send people to find her whereabouts. Li Xiaotian's eyes flickered as he said, I'm back. I will mobilize the resources of the Li Palace and see if there are any clues. Tian Chanzi said happily, yes, while you were gone, I came into contact with a portion of the Li Palace's affairs. There are so many things to take care of that my head hurts. I really don't know how you managed it in the past. Now that you're back, there will definitely be news soon. Li Xiaotian smiled faintly and said, Senior is too kind. Although there is no news of the Empyrean fairies' whereabouts, there is news of the four symbols venerable. I'm just about to go verify it. Tian Chanzi changed the topic. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he asked, where is the four symbols venerable? 1,000 li away from Mount Tian. Tang Zheng nodded inwardly. The four symbols venerable had been sent flying by Kai Yu and was actually 1,000 li away. From this, one could see the power of this attack. He also didn't know if the four symbols venerable had been injured. But since he knew the specific location, there was no reason not to look for them. Moreover, there was no time to lose and he had to set out immediately. Tian Chanzi saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and said, are you going to look for the four symbols venerable? Tang Zheng nodded. Yes, the current situation is confusing and becoming more and more dangerous. I must find the four symbols venerable as soon as possible. That's fine. However, while you were gone, everyone was very worried about your safety. Don't you want to meet with them first? Tian Chanzi asked for his opinion. Tang Zheng thought for a while and said, no need. I'll meet with everyone after I bring the four symbols venerable back. You can tell them first, but remember not to reveal that I'm still alive to the outside world. I don't want us to attract the attention of everyone at this time. Tian Chanzi nodded thoughtfully, understanding Tang Zheng's good intentions. Nowadays, there was no faction that was easy to deal with. They were far more terrifying than the factions of the past. If they attracted the attention of everyone and became the focal point, they would definitely become the center of attention. Keeping a low profile and letting others fight to the death was the right way to go. Kai Yu isn't an idiot. He'll definitely hear about the rise of the martial artists under Ji Wuxiang and definitely won't let them go. So let's wait and see first, Tang Zheng warned. Tian Chanzi chuckled and gave him a thumbs up. You're still the smart one. I'm going back to the Li Palace. Li Xiaotian suddenly said, don't worry, I won't leak the news. I'll definitely think of a way to find out about the Empyrean fairies' whereabouts. Tang Zheng looked deeply at her and held her hand. He said gently, then you must be careful. Don't try to be brave. Li Xiaotian smiled tenderly and said, don't worry, I can't bear to leave you again. Tian Chanzi looked at the two in surprise and thought to himself, this kid is really enlightened. He's won another heart. Chapter 1398. According to the location provided by Tian Chanzi, it was only a little more than 10 kilometers away. This distance was a piece of cake for him. He cast an illusion to hide his figure. Like a gust of wind, he crossed rivers and mountains and went straight to his destination. Unless it was a top expert, ordinary Shouja wanting to discover his whereabouts was tantamount to a fantasy story. Chapter 1399. Deity. A cry of alarm rang out. Then, as if the crowd had come to life, they started to shout loudly and kowtow to Tang Zheng, kowtowing non-stop. The several mountain deity descendants were so scared that their souls were about to melt. They were dumbstruck like wooden chickens. Chapter 1400. The four symbols supremes spoke tirelessly about his origins and even the origin of this world. Tang Zheng's thoughts swayed. He had created mountains and rivers in the heaven realm, which was equivalent to creating a world. It was similar to the creation of heaven and earth described by the four symbols supremes. If he was the creator of the heaven realm, then who was the creator of this world? The four symbols supremes could not say who the creator was, but there was definitely such a person. Otherwise, it was impossible to create heaven and earth, and it was impossible to polish a rock into the four symbols supremes. Tang Zheng subconsciously raised his head. The blue sky stretched as far as the eye could see. Could there be a creator above the 9 heavens? Tang Zheng shook his head and abandoned this unrealistic thought. It was confirmed that there was a creator in this world, but whether or not the creator was still around was still unknown. The tribe that brought me back was the shaman tribe. I became the shaman tribe's guardian. Later on, the shaman tribe gradually developed and became the Nine Li tribe. After the Battle of Zhuolu, I was sealed in the 100,000 mountains with the shaman tribe. The Four Symbols Venerable gave a simple explanation of his origins and experiences. Tang Zheng understood everything clearly and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. No one would have thought that the Four Symbols Venerable would actually have such a mysterious origin that involved the origin of this world. Then how did you find yourself? Weren't you injured by Caillou? Tang Zheng asked curiously. During my battle with Caillou, I was injured and was sent flying. Then, I landed on this mountain. My consciousness was on the verge of disappearing, but at the last moment, the seal in my body was completely removed, giving me a new life. I became one with the mountain and absorbed the energy in the mountain range to recover bit by bit. Tang Zheng was in high spirits. So that was how it was. Caillou wanted to kill the Four Symbols Supremes, but he had a powerful background after all. Before his death, he triggered his seal. After the seal disappeared, his life could be considered to have been saved. He found his true self and became one with the Heaven and Earth mountain range. He absorbed the mountain range's energy for his own use and silently healed his injuries. Tang Zheng's arrival was a trigger mechanism that allowed him to completely come to life and transform into his current appearance. Can you become smaller? Tang Zheng looked up at him and asked. Of course. The Four Symbols Venerables became shorter bit by bit. Mounds of dirt rose up from the ground one after another, and then they became undulating mountains. Other than the fact that the mountains were bare and there was no vegetation, there was no other difference. The Four Symbols Venerable rapidly shrank, and before long, he returned to his original size. However, he didn't stop there. In the end, he became the size of an ordinary person. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in surprise. He was really surprised and happy. However, the pleasant surprise did not end there. The Four Symbols warrior's body flashed with light, and he turned into a human. This, even though Tang Zheng was experienced and knowledgeable, he did not expect this to happen. The Four Symbols Venerable had turned into a person, a handsome young man. Master, if I become like this, it'll be more convenient for me to stay by your side. The Four Symbols Venerable smiled brightly. Tang Zheng was slightly startled, and gradually understood. Your true body is a spirit stone, just like Linga. Once your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can transform into a human, right? The Four Symbols Venerable smiled and nodded. Master is right. Everything had a spirit, even a stone. Of course, ordinary stones could not transform into humans even after millions of years, but the Four Symbols Venerable was a spirit stone to begin with. That was why he could transform into a human. After thinking this through, it was naturally not difficult to understand this scene. He stared at the Four Symbols Venerable with a burning gaze. From now on, the Four Symbols Venerable did not need to stay in Sumeru world. He could properly roam the mortal world. This was probably an experience he had never had before. From now on, you'll stay by my side. Tang Zheng instructed. It's not good to call you the Four Symbols Venerable in front of too many people. How about I call you Four Symbols? Four Symbols. He tilted his head and thought for a while, then nodded happily. That's a nice name. From now on, I'll be called Four Symbols. His smile was bright, clean, and pure. He really looked like a young man. Tang Zheng stared at him without blinking. He was infected by his smile, and his mood improved for no reason. The Four Symbols Venerable was the same as Linga. They were both spirits that had transformed into humans, and their minds were pure. Even though the Four Symbols Venerable had experienced so many things in the shaman tribe, his temperament was still the same. For Symbols, I'll give you a mission. You have to try your best to remember who the person who polished you was when the world was created, and what characteristics he had. Do you understand? Tang Zheng still wanted to understand the matter of the creation of the world, so he solemnly instructed. The Four Symbols Venerable nodded without hesitation. Yes, Master. I'll do my best to remember. Then let's go home. Tang Zheng glanced at the crowd lying on the ground in the distance, not daring to move. He guessed that such a big commotion would probably attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Caillou's forces were growing stronger day by day, so he would definitely investigate the big movements in various places. Such a commotion was indeed very shocking. The four symbols Venerable naturally had no objections. He stepped on the somersault cloud with Tang Zheng and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The crowd lay on the ground, not daring to get up for a long time. They did not even dare to raise their heads to look, as if they were deeply afraid that the immortal would be angry. After a long time, they did not hear any movement. Only then did they raise their heads, but there was no trace of the immortal in the sky. They felt lost. They had seen the immortal, but they did not make a wish to him. This was a great loss. They scattered in all directions, sighing as they prepared to leave. However, they hadn't gone far when a few more people flew over from the sky. Immediately, there were people who bowed their heads. However, a black light flowed under their feet, revealing an evil aura. They were Caillou's subordinates, the Jolie tribe. The name of the Devil tribe no longer existed. The Devil tribe had been completely transformed into the Jolie tribe by Caillou. The Jolie tribe looked at the bare mountain range below and were all shocked. They did not see that scene, but from the scene, they could feel the shock. However, their role was to investigate what exactly happened. Naturally, they could not just take a look and return home. They landed one after another and asked in front of the crowd. There was no need to threaten or bribe them. Some people spilled beans from a bamboo tube and described it in a lively manner. After listening, they all revealed shocked and puzzled expressions. They had never heard or seen these people's descriptions. They could not help but doubt the authenticity of these people's descriptions. "Did you lie and deceive us?" a Jolie tribe member asked fiercely. "We wouldn't dare, we wouldn't dare." The ordinary people hurriedly waved their hands. The others also nodded. "You are immortals from the heavens. How dare we deceive you?" Obviously, the ignorant people thought that these Jolie tribe members were immortals. When the Jolie tribe heard this, they all laughed disdainfully. "Immortals, haha, how ridiculous." The laughter stopped abruptly. The Jolie tribe members exchanged glances and nodded secretly. This news was very important. In order to prevent the news from leaking, these witnesses could not be left alive. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rays of light shot out from their treasures. Blood splattered. In less than a minute, everyone's life came to an end. Chapter 1401. Caillou listened to the report and revealed a shocked expression. He angrily asked, "A mountain turned into a giant and can merge with other mountains? In the end, this giant turned into a living person?" "Yes, this is what those people saw with their own eyes. We have compared their testimonies and there is no mistake," the 9 Li tribesmen respectfully said. Caillou deeply frowned. This was something he had never heard of or seen before. He knew that monster beasts could transform into people, but how could a mountain turn into a person? Could a mountain also become a spirit? Inexplicable. But these people swore solemnly and were definitely not lying. The only explanation was that this matter had an unknown mystery. Only by knowing the situation more clearly could they know the inside story. Only, if the 9 Li tribesmen did not see it with their own eyes, there was no way to know who those 2 people were. Especially the person at the beginning, he was the most important person. Troubled times, there are more and more strange things happening in this world. Caillou pondered for a long time and sighed. His eyes flashed and he sternly ordered, "All of you listen to my orders. We must find clues to these 2 people as soon as possible. In addition, there is a more important matter that is our top priority." "What is it?" "The people we sent to hunt down the cultivators encountered resistance from mysterious people. This group of people are also cultivators, but their strength is different from ordinary cultivators. They can actually injure our tribesmen and cause one of our teams to be completely annihilated." Caillou's voice was like a large bell, his tone difficult to conceal his anger. "What? Cultivators can actually injure our tribesmen? Everyone was shocked. This group of people was originally from the demon race and their strength was not low. Ever since they became the 9 Li tribesmen, their strength increased day by day. If they were completely annihilated like this, then how powerful were these cultivators? Everyone thought of this and the shock in their hearts could be imagined. Caillou coldly snorted and said, "It is precisely because of this that we should investigate clearly who this mysterious group of cultivators is." Pausing for a moment, Caillou's killing intent soared and he murderously said, "No matter who they must be eliminated. Yes, we must get rid of them." Everyone agreed and left to carry out the order. Caillou was the only one left in the large hall. With a thought, the wall behind him slowly turned into a door. He walked in step by step. The lanterns were brightly lit, illuminating his gloomy face. "Empyrean Fairy, your father, the Emperor of Heaven, still hasn't come to save you. It seems like your father-daughter relationship isn't that deep. You can actually watch your daughter be trapped and turn a blind eye," Caillou said meaningfully. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of flame lit up in the darkness in a corner, illuminating a person's figure. The Empyrean Fairy stood there with her long hair fluttering in the wind. She looked rather haggard. They had suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Sky Mountain. Not only had she been captured alive, but according to Caillou, Tang Zheng was already dead. This was what shocked her the most. Although she still had a trace of luck in her heart, after careful analysis, this trace of luck seemed to become more and more remote. She was very clear about the consequences of detonating pure yang energy because she had the 9 Yin Saint body. She had experienced the pain and even the danger of detonating pure yin energy. "If I hadn't hesitated and had sex with him, using my pure yin energy to balance his pure yang energy, he might have been able to escape danger." She couldn't help but regret. This feeling grew with each passing day. If she was given another chance, she would definitely have made a different choice. Hearing this, the Empyrean Fairy raised her head and looked straight at Caillou. She said, "Caillou, my father won't fall for your trick. Ha ha, father and daughter are connected by heart. I believe that one day, he will come to save you. I'm very patient," Caillou said with a smile. The Empyrean Fairy snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. Caillou didn't mind and continued, "When the time comes and I subdue the Emperor of Heaven, I'll have another general and the world will be in my hands even faster." Caillou clenched his fists as if victory was within his grasp. "Don't daydream. You want to become the ruler of this world. Have you asked everyone? You don't have the slightest bit of benevolence. No wonder you lost to the Yellow Emperor in the Battle of Zhualu." This was the pain in Caillou's heart. These words fiercely stabbed Caillou. His eyes were cold as he said, "Benevolence? Mph, what's the use of that? The Yellow Emperor is benevolent. I don't think so. Moreover, the soul of the Golden Crow no longer exists. He has no chance of resurrecting. So what if he won the Battle of Zhualu? The one who laughs last is the true winner. Now, the only one left in the Yellow Emperor tribe is Mo Xie. She can't make any waves. The glory of the Yellow Emperor tribe is gone forever." The Empyrean Fairy snorted and retorted, "How long do you think you can be so glorious? Don't be too happy. Who knows, you might end up in an even worse state." "Ha ha ha, I'll end up in an even worse state?" Caillou laughed maniacally, "Your words are too childish." After a slight pause, Caillou said firmly, "Just you wait. I'll let you see the day when I unify the world. I'll prove that I'm more suitable for this world than the Yellow Emperor. I'll make this world stronger. Don't forget, there's still the sky beyond heaven. The spatial isolation between this world and the sky beyond heaven is very weak. The demons can return and the people from the sky beyond heaven can come to this world. I'll see how you deal with them when the time comes." The Empyrean Fairy raised another thorny issue. Caillou's expression stiffened, but immediately returned to normal. He said disdainfully, "What's there to fear from the sky beyond heaven? It's good that they're here. I want to settle old scores with them. They've killed many of my clansmen. I'll use their blood as a sacrifice to the souls of my clansmen in heaven." The Empyrean Fairy sneered, too lazy to say another word. If the sky beyond heaven were so easy to deal with, the cultivators wouldn't have been so miserable after being banished to the sky beyond heaven. The demons wouldn't have been so impatient to return to this world. In front of the Empyrean fairy, Caillou couldn't gain any advantage with words. He flung his sleeves and left without looking back. Southern Yunnan had already become the headquarters of the Azure Dragon Hall. With the Long family as the core, countless martial artists gathered here. The martial artists' strength had greatly increased, and their bodies all possessed the power of the stars. These martial artists were all loyal to Ji Wuxiang. At this moment, Ji Wuxiang frowned, unable to hide his anger. Grandma Li stood at the side, killing intent appearing in her eyes as she said, "High Lord, our people have been completely annihilated. This grudge must be avenged." Ji Wuxiang glanced at Grandma Li and said, "That's Mo Xie. Who told them to act on their own accord and actually chase after him? Don't you know how powerful he is?" Grandma Li stammered, "This is my dereliction of duty." They were patrolling in southern Yunnan when they suddenly encountered Mo Xie. That's why they decided to chase after him. After all, cultivators are our enemies. Chimph, why don't you look at your own strength? Do you really think you're invincible? Ji Wuxiang asked. Grandma Li quickly said, "I will definitely give the order. This kind of problem won't happen again in the future." Ji Wuxiang pondered for a moment, then said, "Since they've already sacrificed themselves, then I won't pursue the matter. I heard that you even caught Yi Meiyu." "Yes, I was just about to ask the Venerable One how to deal with her. She's Yi Xuanji's granddaughter. Let him deal with her." Ji Wuxiang thought for a moment, then said, "Yes." Grandma Li did not raise any objections. Did the Yang family reply? Ji Wuxiang asked again. Grandma Li hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "He has already replied, but he rejected us." "Rejected us?" Chimph, looks like Yang Potian wants to go all the way and completely annihilate the Yang family. Ji Wuxiang said meaningfully. Ever since Ji Wuxiang completely controlled the heavens chess, he had been recruiting people everywhere, searching for martial warriors experts. Although the power of the stars could increase a martial warrior's power, if this martial warrior was already very powerful, then it would naturally be easier for him to increase his power and reach a higher realm. Most of the martial warriors in the world were in a few great clans. Now, the only great clan left was the Yang family in the capital. Ji Wuxiang started to have ideas about the Yang family, threatening and enticing them, trying to make the Yang family submit to him. This way, he would have more martial warriors and nurture more experts. Ji Wuxiang knew very well that he didn't have much time left. His continuous actions must have attracted Caillou's attention. Who was Caillou? He would definitely not do things sloppily. Once Caillou focused all of his attention on them, a huge battle would definitely break out between the two sides. Right now, it was just a small test of his strength. Once the test was over, a great battle would be unavoidable. Ji Wuxiang had to take advantage of this gap to search for as many martial warriors as possible. The many martial warriors of the Yang family were a part of them. However, for some reason, the Yang family did not submit to him at all. Could it be that the Yang family is still counting on Tang Zheng? He doesn't even have bones left. How can he protect the Yang family? His daydreaming. Caillou muttered to himself, unable to figure it out. Grandma Li had an idea, and said, "Why don't we send people to exterminate the Yang family, and kill the chicken to warn the monkey?" Caillou immediately waved his hand. "There's no need to go through so much trouble, it's too troublesome. If Yang Potian chooses to perish, I will fulfill his wish." Grandma Li did not say anything else and took her leave. In the cell, Grandma Li saw the haggard but still charming Yi Meiyu, and walked towards her step by step. Yi Meiyu was trapped in the cage, looking at Grandma Li listlessly. Grandma Li stared straight at her, and suddenly shouted, "Get up." Yi Meiyu stood up as if it was a conditioned reflex. She looked at her suspiciously and said, "You want to kill me? You have repeatedly gone against us. If I don't kill you, what are you doing here?" Grandma Li did not smile and said coldly. Yi Meiyu's face was pale and ashen. She was about to make a name for herself, but she never thought that she would encounter such a mishap. Was he really going to die? She was unwilling, and hurriedly said, "Don't kill me, I am Yi Xuanji's granddaughter. What happened in the past was just a misunderstanding, I came here together." Grandma Li had long heard of her ability to take advantage of the situation, so she was not surprised. Her temper was very good, and she sneered, "It's already too late, but I'm not the one who decides your life and death. Someone else will." After Grandma Li finished speaking, Yi Xuanji walked in from the door. Chapter 1403. Yi Meiyu looked at him in shock. After being absent-minded for a few seconds, she shouted as if she had seen her savior, "Grandfather, quickly save me, I am your granddaughter, Meiyu." Grandma Li did not stop her, but said with a cold expression, "Now you know that you are his granddaughter? When you joined forces with the rest of the Ye family to monopolize the Ye family and isolate him, did you ever think that you were his granddaughter?" Yi Meiyu's face froze. Knowing that this was her fatal flaw, she had an idea, and said while crying, "That was all because I was controlled by Liu Wuxin. It was not my own intention, I did not want to do that at all." Grandma Li was so smart, how could she be deceived by this 3-year-old child's lie? She said coldly, "Your mind is being controlled? You really dare to say that? Really, grandfather, you must believe me. Now that Liu Wuxin is dead, I can't wait to come find you." Yi Meiyu hurriedly said. Grandma Li did not refute her, she only turned to Yi Xuanji and said, "Lord means that you can decide how to deal with her." Yi Xuanji nodded solemnly and said, "Thank you, Lord. I hope you don't disappoint Lord." After Grandma Li finished speaking, she took a step back and made room for Yi Xuanji. Yi Xuanji and Yi Meiyu were very close to each other. Their eyes met, and Yi Meiyu's eyes were filled with fear and pleading. Suddenly, there was a slight fluctuation in Yi Xuanji's eyes. Yi Meiyu keenly noticed this and was overjoyed. Her face became even more miserable, and her pleading expression became even more sincere. 2 drops of tears flowed out from the corners of her eyes. The fluctuation in Yi Xuanji's eyes became even more intense. Yi Meiyu was secretly delighted, thinking that victory was in her hands. "Yi Meiyu, do you know the harm you have caused to our Ye family?" Yi Xuanji finally spoke. His voice was low and deep, suppressing the anger in his heart. Yi Meiyu hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Grandfather, that was all because I had no choice. I had no choice. I grew up in the Ye family. How could I do anything to harm the Ye family? You taught us to love this family since we were young, and I have always remembered it in my heart." Yi Meiyu cried and sobbed, her voice choked with emotions. Li Xiaotian just kept sneering. She didn't believe this nonsense at all. Yi Xuanji's eyes fiercely twitched a few times, and said in a deep voice, "But your actions are contrary to what I taught you. That was what Liu Wuxin and Mo Xie asked me to do. It really wasn't my intention." Yi Meiyu hurriedly explained. "I just want the Ye family to become stronger and become the leader of the major families. I know that this is also Grandpa's wish and goal. I also want to help Grandpa." Yi Xuanji did not correct the truth in his words, and said, "What about your brother Yi Ku? What did you do to him?" After Yi Xuanji was forced to leave the Ye family really fell apart. As for Yi Ku's whereabouts, he did not hear any more words. Back then, Yi Ku betrayed Yi Xuanji and threw herself at Yi Meiyu. This matter was a huge blow to Yi Xuanji. After all, he had always had high hopes for Yi Ku. At the last moment, he even gave her the right to decide all the affairs of the family. Yi Ku had basically become his successor. But he never thought that Yi Ku would betray him. He almost couldn't believe all of this, and even his faith in life was about to collapse. The children that he had educated had actually betrayed him and abandoned him. This blow was undoubtedly cruel and serious for an old man. When Yi Meiyu heard the 2 words Yi Ku, the corner of her mouth twitched twice. Her expression became extremely unnatural, but she quickly covered it up. "Grandpa, Big Brother is staying in a safe place. Now that the situation is complicated, I can't protect him. I can only hide him in a safe place." Yi Meiyu said. "Where is that?" Yi Xuanji was excited. Yi Meiyu didn't even blink, and said, "A place. This is a mountain. Without me, you can't find them. In the mountains." Yi Xuanji muttered to himself, his eyes filled with hope. Things had changed, and things were no longer the same as before. He desperately wanted to find his grandson and have him join Ji Wuxiang's camp. That way, Yi Ku could become stronger, and he could subtly influence him and beat around the bush. It might not be impossible for him to turn over a new leaf. In this way, the Ye family would once again have a successor, and would inevitably rise again. What Yang family? They would be unable to withstand a single blow. The Ye family would have the last laugh, become the final victor, and become a big family that would not fall. Seeing that Yi Xuanji was skeptical, Yi Meiyu quickly promised, "Yes, he is in the mountains. I can go find him. I believe that he also misses Grandpa very much. At that time, our family can be reunited again." Family reunion. Yi Xuanji's expression changed slightly, his eyelids twitched, and he seemed to be quite moved. Yi Meiyu seemed to want to strike while the iron was hot, and really persuade Yi Xuanji, then her life might be saved. But before she could say anything, a light voice rang out, but this voice was no less powerful than a sudden clap of thunder. "Yi Meiyu, your disguise is too good. Even now, you still dare to speak nonsense. Do you really think that no one in this world can see through you?" Li Xiaotian looked straight at her, his eyes full of contempt. A trace of panic appeared in the depths of Yi Meiyu's eyes. She pretended to be calm and said, "Grandma Li, I don't know what you're talking about. Even if I really did something inappropriate, it was still under Liu Wuxin's control, and definitely not out of my own heart." Yi Meiyu seemed to be afraid of something, and deliberately put down these words to clear her name and find a way out. Yi Xuanji seemed to have sensed something, and also looked at Yi Meiyu curiously. Grandma Li directly said, "Fmph, Yi Xuanji, your granddaughter is too good at acting. If I didn't know the inside story, I'm afraid I would have been deceived by her." Yi Xuanji asked in a daze, "Grandma Li, what inside story?" Grandma Li looked at Yi Xuanji and couldn't bear it. This news would definitely hurt him and make him suffer. But after hesitating for a moment, she still told the truth. "Your grandson Yi Ku died a long time ago. He died in her hands." Grandma Li pointed at Yi Meiyu and said resolutely, "What?" Both of them exclaimed. Yi Xuanji looked at Yi Meiyu in shock and said with a trembling voice, "You killed your brother?" Yi Meiyu panicked, as if she did not expect that such a deep secret would be made public. She looked at Grandma Li in horror, then looked at Yi Xuanji. She bit her lips and roared crazily, "No, I didn't kill him. She's talking nonsense. He's my brother, how could I kill him?" Yi Xuanji's eyes were bright and full of spirit, as if there was a light shooting out from his pupils that could pierce through everything. He stared at Yi Meiyu without blinking. She couldn't help but feel a little guilty, but she still puffed up her cheeks and stubbornly raised her head. A smile appeared on the corner of Grandma Li's mouth. The bigger Yi Meiyu's reaction, the bigger her smile became, making people feel scared. Yi Meiyu's heart also gradually became scared. There was a voice asking herself, "I'm the only one who knows about this. How did she know? Although your ability to lie is very high, you are still too inexperienced in front of me." Grandma Li shook her head and sighed, "Look at me and Yi Xuanji, who are we? We have experienced countless storms and scams. Do you think there are any scams that can deceive us?" Yi Meiyu's voice was getting weaker and weaker, and her breathing was involuntarily hurried. Her eyes were flustered, as if she was looking for an opportunity to escape. She knew very well that Yi Ku was Yi Xuanji's flesh and blood. She was the chosen successor of the Ye family, but she died in her hands. Her fate could be imagined. The atmosphere was getting more and more oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. Yi Xuanji finally opened his mouth and asked with a trembling voice, "You really killed him?" Yi Meiyu wanted to say something but hesitated. Yi Xuanji interrupted her and said, "I'll only give you one chance. Once you miss it, you won't have another chance. He's not dead." Yi Meiyu hesitated again and again, but insisted. Grandma Li sneered, looking at Yi Meiyu as if she was looking at a dead person. Yi Xuanji shook his head, "Yi Meiyu, you disappoint me too much. Since you were young, I have always followed your temperament and did not interfere with you. I didn't expect you to do such an unforgivable thing as killing your brother. You are really hopeless, and your death is not regrettable." Hearing these words, Yi Meiyu completely panicked. She knew that her lie had been seen through. Moreover, Yi Xuanzhi's heart was already cold, and he had the intention to kill. She could no longer hide it, and knelt down in front of Yi Xuanzhi, crying bitterly, "Grandfather, I beg you to spare me. This was not my original intention. I didn't want to kill him, he forced me, I had no choice but to do so." "He forced you?" "Me." Yi Xuanzhi smiled bitterly. "Yes, he always wanted to persuade me to return to the Ye family. In the end, he even threatened me with his life, which was why an accident happened. All of this was an accident. He persuaded you to return to the Ye family, and threatened you with his life." Yi Xuanzhi was shocked, and his expression changed slightly. "Yes." At this point, Yi Meiyu no longer had anything to hide. "He left the Ye family and submitted to me. The most important condition was that he could not hurt you. Back then, Liu Wuxin wanted to hurt you, and he had no choice but to do so for your safety." "What?" Yi Xuanzhi's entire body trembled. This time he was truly shocked. He had always thought that Yi Ku had betrayed him, but it turned out that there was still an inside story. He had no choice but to compromise in order to protect Yi Xuanzhi. Yi Xuanzhi did not dare to imagine how much grievance he had endured, but he could not help but think about it. Immediately, his entire body trembled, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife, his face was ashen, and he weakly muttered to himself, "My good grandson, you have suffered a great grievance. Grandfather has wronged you, it is grandfather's fault." His voice became hoarse. There were too many people in the Ye family who went against his concept. When Yi Ku betrayed him, he almost collapsed. Because that meant that he had been betrayed, and no matter how much he had achieved in his life, he would be overshadowed by all of this. He thought that he was a complete failure, and that he had no face to face the ancestors of the Ye family. At this moment, although his heart was in pain, he seemed to have come back to life. At least, the biggest stone in his heart had disappeared. Chapter 1404. In the capital, Tang Zheng and the four symbols walked together. They had all used illusions, so even if it was a passerby, it would be extremely difficult to discover their whereabouts. Unless it was someone with an extremely high cultivation. Tang Zheng had already figured out that the reason why his illusions on the mountain peak had failed was because of the influence of the four symbols. Now, although he had the four symbols as his helpers, he did not plan to immediately appear and attract the attention of all parties. The two of them quietly returned to the villa area, only to discover that there were guests at home. Tian Chanzi was receiving them. From afar, looking in through the window, Tang Zheng saw Yang Potian. His expression was stern as he conversed with Tian Chanzi. Tang Zheng did not enter the hall. Instead, he went around to the backyard and left the four symbols behind. He soared into the air and arrived at Marshall's window. He had already discovered that there was no one in Yi Dingdang and Fang Shusha's rooms. They must have gone to school to attend classes, and since there was someone in Marshall's room, he naturally came to see her first. His women must have been worried to death about him. Although Tian Chanzi had already told them that he had returned, he did not see it with his own eyes. In the end, his heart was still not at ease. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew in from the window and lifted the curtains. Wu suddenly opened his eyes and stared straight at the window. She had been cultivating the entire time, but just now, she had a feeling that someone was spying on her. This feeling was very strange, but he couldn't help but look over. She activated her power, but did not discover anything unusual. She could not help but frown. This villa area was protected by a great array. Ordinary people would not be able to enter without making a sound. She secretly comforted herself that she was too nervous. She took a deep breath and turned around. Suddenly, her pupils dilated as a person appeared in front of her. "You're back." She leaped up like a mermaid out of the water and pounced towards Tang Zheng. She was completely different from her usual calm and composed self. Tang Zheng looked at her with a smile, opened his arms, and tightly hugged her in his embrace. He stroked her jet-black hair and said, "I made you worry." The two of them were of similar height. Marshall and his eyes met. Silent emotions were transmitted from each other's eyes and quickly ignited, turning into thick flames. Marshall raised his head passionately. Tang Zheng's mind was connected, and he immediately kissed her, his passion quickly burning. The room seemed to be on fire, and passion reverberated throughout the entire space. After a long time, the two of them lay on the bed in each other's embrace. Marshall's face was flushed red, like an obedient kitten nestled in his embrace, recounting their experiences during this period of time. When she heard about the dangers of the trip to the ghost realm, Marshall's breathing became hurried, and she anxiously grabbed his hand. As the night deepened, the hall became lively. Tang Zheng heard a few familiar voices and knew that Yi Dingdang and Fang Shusha had returned home from school. Go and call them in. It was inconvenient for him to show himself, so he could only repeatedly instruct Wu. Wu nodded, dressed neatly, turned around to look at her, and left the room. A moment later, with a creak, the door opened, and two figures impatiently rushed in. Like beautiful butterflies, they fluttered and danced as they threw themselves into Tang Zheng's embrace. Fang Shusha and Yi Dingdang leaned into her embrace at the same time. They looked at each other, and their deep longing for Tang Zheng overshadowed the shyness in their hearts. He could clearly feel the feelings of his children, and could not help but hug them tightly. Marshall watched from the side, her expression as usual, without the slightest bit of jealousy. Yi Dingdang lightly punched his chest and said coquettishly, "You came back a few days ago, why didn't you come to see us? You're too cruel, causing us to worry for so long." Her fist was like tickling, and he let her hit him to her heart's content. But how could she bear to use force? After 2 or 3 hits, she stopped, pouted her pink lips, and looked at him bitterly. Tang Zheng grabbed her fist and placed it on his chest, and said guiltily, "I'm sorry, I made you worry." I'm not worried about you, it's Shusha who is worried to death." Yi Dingdang immediately changed her words, not speaking from her heart. Tang Zheng gave a smile that was not a smile, extended his finger, and lifted Fang Shusha's chin, and said, "It seems like I have to properly thank Shusha for not worrying about me, you can forget about it." Fang Shusha was extremely bashful, but was unwilling to move her gaze away. Her eyes were bright, and when she heard his words, she could not help but laugh. Yi Dingdang was greatly embarrassed, and weakly punched him a few more times, and said, "You have no feminine heart, I'll hit you, hit you." Fang Shusha hurriedly said, "Don't listen to her, you don't know how worried she is about you. She doesn't want to eat or drink, can't you see that she has lost weight?" "Did she really lose weight?" Tang Zheng stared at Yi Dingdang, but his gaze fell on her chest. "I don't think she lost weight, she's even bigger," he said with deep meaning. They were all Tang Zheng's women, so how could they not understand the true meaning of these words? Immediately, Yi Dingdang's face turned red, and fiercely punched him a few times. "Where are your eyes looking at?" "Of course it's looking at you," Tang Zheng said with a deadpan expression. Yi Dingdang was helpless, and rolled her eyes at this guy who spoke without thinking. Fang Shusha covered her small cherry lips, unable to hide her smile. It was to the extent that even Marshall, who was always serious in speech and manner, had a beautiful arc on her lips. With your flowery mouth, did you take advantage of us not being here this afternoon to do something bad behind our backs?" Yi Dingdang suddenly had an idea, and glanced at Marshall from the corner of her eyes, and meaningfully said, "Eh." Marshall's expression immediately froze, she did not expect that the flames of war would burn her body, and her face immediately flushed red. Yi Dingdang was also a woman, so seeing this scene, how could she not understand what was going on? She glared at Tang Zheng, and her fingers fiercely pinched his waist. "Ayo!" Tang Zheng immediately cried out exaggeratedly. Yi Dingdang hurriedly covered his mouth, and sternly said, "Do you want others to find out? Didn't you not want to show yourself? Hehe, you still understand me." Tang Zheng laughed, but immediately felt 2 unkind gazes sweep over him. He was shocked, and hurriedly said, "You all understand me, you all understand me." Only then did the 2 gazes slightly ease up. He could not help but sigh in his heart, it was indeed not an easy thing to have many women, and if the rain was not evenly distributed, it would cause internal conflicts. Below, Elder Yang is still discussing with Master. I heard that Ji Wuxiang sent people to try and persuade Elder Yang to pledge allegiance to him. Fang Shisha said with a serious expression. They already knew about the Azure Dragon Hall, and knew that the martial artists were no longer the same as before, and that the Azure Dragon Hall had undergone earth-shattering changes. Yi Dingdang and Marshall were both martial artists, so they were especially concerned about this, and could not help but subconsciously look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng muttered to himself, Ji Wuxiang's ambition is quite big, as long as it is a martial artist with a certain amount of power, he will not miss it. Ji Wuxiang had even recruited some unknown martial artists, so how could he let go of such a large martial artist power like the Yang family? They haven't come up with a countermeasure yet, so what are you going to do? Marshall asked with concern. Since Elder Yang rejected Ji Wuxiang the first time, then naturally there won't be a second time. Because Ji Wuxiang's pride won't let him pester and lobby the Yang family. Tang Zheng analyzed. Yi Dingdang had an idea. He rolled his eyes and said worriedly, then you mean that Ji Wuxiang is going to make a move on the Yang family? Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily. Yang Potian definitely knew about this, which was why he came to find Tian Chanzi to discuss countermeasures. This was their last backer. Although Tang Zheng was dead, the two of them were still deep allies. In times of danger, they should help each other. Fang Shisha said worriedly, Yang family has helped us many times, we can't just watch as Ji Wuxiang destroys the Yang family. Of course. Tang Zheng nodded without hesitation. The Yang family rejected Ji Wuxiang, which means that they are reliable allies. Tang Zheng was very clear about how attractive Ji Wuxiang's current grasp was to the martial artists. However, Yang Potian was able to resist the temptation and pressure, and reject Ji Wuxiang's request. One could imagine how much courage he needed to do so. Just this point alone was enough to make Tang Zheng feel deep veneration. Can Ji Wuxiang really transform martial artists? Yi Dingdang asked doubtfully. Tang Zheng nodded his head heavily. Judging from the clues we have, he can indeed do all of this. Yi Dingdang's expression became extremely complicated. Ji Wuxiang is a genius. What he does is something that ordinary people, and even many powerful experts, cannot do. Tang Zheng added. Then what should we do? Looking at old Master Yang's attitude, if he doesn't have a definite message, I'm afraid he won't even go back. Yi Dingdang recalled Yang Potion's expression and asked worriedly. This was indeed a difficult problem. Tang Zheng wondered if he could strengthen his confidence if he appeared. The answer was yes. However, if he appeared, it was extremely likely that he would expose the news of him being alive. Why am I so old-fashioned? He even rejected Ji Wuxiang's olive branch. If I were still so wishy-washy and afraid that he would leak the news, then I would be too much of a good-for-nothing. Since Yang Potian had made this choice, then he was naturally the most trustworthy ally. What else am I worried about? He suddenly saw the light, dispelled the worry in his heart, and said to Fang Shisha, Shisha, invite Elder Yang back, but secretly bring him to the training room under the villa. I want to see him. Yang Potian did not come here alone, he had brought people with him. Tang Zheng could trust Yang Potian, but he would not trust everyone. Therefore, even if it was the people around Yang Potian, he had to be on guard. After all, this was a critical moment, and he had to be on guard. Who could guarantee that Yang Potian did not have a nail planted by someone else? Fang Shisha left the room, and after a while, Yang Potian indeed brought his subordinates and left the villa. The sky gradually darkened, and they disappeared into the night. After a long while, a person quietly returned. Under Fang Shisha's support, he quietly entered the villa. At the same time, within the capital, a person passed through layers upon layers of sentry posts and arrived at the core of the room. Chapter 1405. The expression of the 100 Transformations Star Sovereign kept changing. Now that he controlled most of the upper echelons, he had great power and limitless glory. As for his true identity, no one doubted it. After all, he had used the soul-searching technique on the chief and did not miss a single detail. If he could even disguise the details, who would doubt his identity? The Yang family is no longer a concern. Ji Wuxiang will not let them go. Another thing, didn't the news from the west say that there was a strange phenomenon? How's the investigation going? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign asked again. This time, we encountered a problem. Those witnesses were all killed and died miserably, so we don't know what happened at that time. What, they're all dead? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign said in surprise. I'm afraid it was done by the demon clan, afraid that others would know the details. This matter must be extraordinary, which is why the demon clan is mobilizing so many people. What exactly is going on? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign narrowed his eyes, deep in thought, but he couldn't figure it out. Ji Wuxiang and Kai, you will definitely have a large-scale conflict. After all, the demon clan is taking revenge, surrounding and annihilating the martial warriors everywhere. What should we do? The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign snorted, and said, back then, I really underestimated Ji Wuxiang. He actually modified the martial warriors and activated the power of the stars. If he is allowed to grow stronger, he will definitely become a huge problem in the future. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign was still a cultivator in his bones. He was filled with hatred towards Ji Wuxiang for changing the martial warriors and the situation of the world. Then let's set up a plan in advance and take precautions. The 100 Transformations Star Sovereign nodded, of course I know. Let me think about how to provoke the two sides to fight to the death, so that I can sit back and reap the benefits. In the villa's underground training room, Yang Potian was bewildered. He chose to believe in Fang Shusha and returned. He did not know what her intentions were. When he stepped into the training room, under the light, he immediately saw a familiar figure. This figure was very tall and straight, like a sword. Yang Potian's heart skipped a beat as he opened his eyes wide. He looked at the figure in disbelief and said, This. Tang Jing slowly turned around, and the two of them immediately looked at each other. Yang Potian was so excited that he almost had a heart attack. Young Master Tang, you're still alive. Yang Potian took a deep breath and finally recovered. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile, nodded and said, Elder Yang, I'm sorry for keeping this from you. Yang Potian was truly shocked. He originally did not believe the news of Tang Zheng's death. After all, Yang Qingyi had once said that he was the savior. However, after a long time had passed, he did not appear, and all signs indicated that he was indeed no longer in this world. He had no choice but to accept this reality. But now, he saw Tang Zheng standing in front of him, alive and well. How could he remain calm? It was absolutely impossible for someone to pretend to be Tang Zheng and calm his mind. Tang Zheng was not someone who could be easily impersonated. His temperament and manner of speech could not be disguised at all. It doesn't matter. As long as young Master Tang is alive, it's a great thing. I'm really too happy. Yang Potian was so excited that his eyes turned red, and he lost his composure. I'm sorry, I lost my composure. I am indeed too happy. Yang Potian wiped the corner of his eyes and sighed. Tang Zheng understood his feelings and said, I understand, Elder Yang. Thank you for always believing in us and believing in Tian Chanzi. As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Chanzi walked out from the darkness. Yang Potian laughed without caring in the slightest. Now that the situation is so chaotic, if I don't believe you, who else can I believe? Although his words were somewhat helpless, his persistent trust was moving. Since young Master Tang is back, then we will have a backbone. Everything will be easy. The stone hanging in Yang Potian's heart fell to the ground as he said with relief. Elder Yang, you flatter me. How can I be the backbone of the group? Yang Potian said seriously, other than you, who else can do it? Tang Zheng smiled bitterly, and did not dwell on this question, and said, Elder Yang, I know your current predicament. You are worried that Ji Wuxiang will harm the Yang family. You can rest assured that with me here, I will definitely not let the Yang family be harmed. Tang Zheng's words were firm and unquestionable. Yang Potian nodded his head heavily. He did not question him at all, but unconditionally believed him, and said, with young Master Tang's words, it is enough. Of course, what we have to do is not only that. We can't just passively take a beating. We have to take the initiative to attack. Tang Zheng changed the topic and said, take the initiative to attack. What wise ideas does young Master Tang have? Yang Potian looked at him curiously. Not only that, The others also looked at Tang Zheng curiously. After careful consideration, Tang Zheng knew that a war would definitely break out between Ji Wuxiang and Kaiyu, but he had to speed up all of this, so that the flames of war would burn even faster and even more fiercely. "We are going to attack Ji Wuxiang's troops," Tang Zheng said casually, but his words were like a heavy bomb exploding with a loud bang. Everyone looked at him in shock. This was an extremely risky move. Ji Wuxiang was no longer the same as before. He would definitely defend himself to the death. If they were to attack him, it would definitely be an extremely risky move. Tian Chanzi directly said, "It's too risky, we can't." Fang Sheshe and the others also nodded, unwilling to let Tang Zheng take any more risks and suffer any losses. Tang Zheng understood their feelings, but still persisted. "I know everyone's feelings, but we have to do this, otherwise, we won't be able to completely ignite the flames of war between Ji Wuxiang and Kaiyu. Right now, no matter which side they are on, they are all powerful and cannot be underestimated. We have to avoid direct contact with them as much as possible." Seeing that Tang Zheng had already made up his mind, everyone knew that it was useless to persuade him, and all of them had worried expressions. "All of you are in the open, so there's no way for you to carry out this mission. Only a dead person like me is the most suitable candidate. They won't suspect me," Tang Zheng added. Although everyone was worried about his safety, if they thought about it carefully, this was indeed a good idea. "Furthermore, I am no longer the same as before. How can an ordinary person hurt me? I am at the second stage of the Mahayana stage," Tang Zheng said confidently. Yang Potian turned pale with fright, and muttered to himself, "Second stage of the Mahayana stage?" That was a realm that he did not even dare to hope for. Stars appeared in his eyes as he stared at Tang Zheng like a fan looking at a celebrity. "This is a coincidence. Everyone will reach this realm in the future," Tang Zheng comforted. Yang Potian laughed bitterly. How could it be that easy to reach the second stage of the Mahayana stage? To martial warriors, that was the martial emperor realm. Tang Zheng looked deeply at Yang Potian. He still had one more thing in his heart that he did not make clear. He wanted to investigate the truth of the Azure Dragon Palace, and the most important thing was to find out how Ji Wuxiang had transformed the martial warriors. If he could know the mystery behind it, and if he was very familiar with heavenly chess, it was completely possible for him to replicate Ji Wuxiang's success. He also had many martial warriors by his side, so he could completely follow the instructions and transform the martial warriors by his side. At that time, the originally weak martial warriors would also erupt with great power. The two sides secretly discussed for a while, and Yang Potian carefully left with a belly full of thoughts. Tang Zheng decided to stay for the night and let the four symbols venerable see everyone. They were all surprised by his change. Since he had seen Yang Potian, Tang Zheng might as well see the witch clan elder. When the elder saw the living Tang Zheng, his reaction was huge, and he immediately burst into tears. During the period of time when Tang Zheng was dead, the spirit of the entire witch clan seemed to have been sucked away, and anyone who saw it would be moved. Tang Zheng could not bear for them to be kept in the dark. Moreover, he had another goal. The four symbols were the guardians of the witch clan. He wanted to ask the elders if they knew more about the four symbols. When the elder saw the four symbols that had transformed into humans, his reaction was even greater than that of Tang Zheng. He was extremely shocked, and naturally, he did not have any extra information to provide to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had no choice but to give up. In the dead of night, he sat alone in the training room. All the girls knew that he was about to face a very dangerous journey, so they didn't disturb him. They wanted him to conserve his energy and be in his best condition to face the possible danger. Tang Zheng might as well immerse his mind in the heaven realm. The martial warriors that the black hole had absorbed a few days ago had turned into strands of life force and appeared in the heaven realm. When Tang Zheng saw this life force, he couldn't help but think of the words of the four symbols regarding the creation of the world. This world had already been successfully established, but what was lacking the most was the process of creation. This was the most difficult part. At the same time, he had a new understanding of space. In the past, he had mistakenly thought that the Sumeru world and the Sumeru ring were two different spatial worlds. In fact, he was ridiculously wrong. That could not be considered a world at all, but a warehouse. A true spatial world was a world like the heaven realm that could create things. The Sumeru world's level was much higher than ordinary Sumeru ring, but it was impossible to create things. It could only store things. There was an essential difference. He did not tell others about the heaven realm. This seemed too shocking. Before he figured it out, it could not be considered public knowledge. There were countless big worlds and small worlds in the universe. Who was the one who created these worlds? Who was the creator? Such a question arose in his heart, but he could not find the answer at all. Now, he was also a creator, so he could not help but want to explore the secrets. However, he could only slowly explore this by himself. No one else could help him at all. From the words of Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean fairy, they had never mentioned this matter. They did not know that people could also be creators. He was not in a hurry to use the strands of life force. His mind withdrew from the heaven realm and entered the Sumeru world. Azura was still quietly staying in place, like a statue. Not far away was Mo Xie. He noticed Tang Zheng's consciousness and immediately asked, "Tang Zheng, what is Tian Chanzi's decision?" Mo Xie had always wanted to check whether Tian Chanzi still had the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor in his body, but Tian Chanzi did not give him the chance. "How much time has it been? What's the hurry?" Tang Zheng said lazily. People under the eaves, Mo Xie had no choice but to shut his mouth resentfully. Tang Zheng patrolled around the Sumeru world. This was very different from the heaven realm. In the heaven realm, he did not need to deliberately patrol. Everything was like a movie, clearly displayed in his mind. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.